It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. Nate Lanxon joins us. He's got a show about AI on Bloomberg TV called AI IRL. Brianna Wu is here. She's got a new job and a new pitch. And, of course, we love seeing David Spark, my old friend from Tech TV, now host of the CISO series. Coming up, pinball talk. Mark Zuckerberg's secret lair. It's pretty much an evil Bond villain's place. And 7 things the New York Times learned about Wordle. It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT. This Week in Tech, episode 958, recorded Sunday, December 17th, 2023. Never look a gift mouse in the horse. This Week in Tech is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now ACI Learning. ACI's new solution, Insights, assists in identifying and fixing skill gaps on your IT teams. Visit go.acilearning.com/TWiT. TWiT listeners, you can get up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. The discount is based on your team size, so fill out the form and find out how much you can save. And by Delete Me. Reclaim your privacy by removing personal data from online sources. Protect yourself and reduce the risk of fraud, spam, cybersecurity threats, and more by going to joindeleteme.com/TWiT and using the code TWiT for 20% off. And by Mint Mobile. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service this holiday season with Mint Mobile's best wireless deal of the year. For a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan and get 3 more months free by going to mintmobile.com/TWiT. New customers only. And by Palo Alto Networks. Their Zero Trust for OT security solution can help your business achieve 351% ROI over 5 years. To learn more, find the link in the show description or visit paloaltonetworks.com. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. The last live show of the year, I guess, because next week is Christmas Eve, and that's going to be our Old Farts Christmas special. And then the following show, New Year's Eve, we wouldn't make you come in for that. That's going to be the best of 2023, all the best stories. So this is officially the last one of 2023. So, of course, because it's the last one, we have put together the best panel of the year. Except for all the other ones, which are also pretty good, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
No.
That's Brianna.
Whatever the most recent episode, that's the best episode.
That's always it's like that with Johnny. It was always that way with Johnny Carson. Last night's audience was terrible. You guys are great. That is David Spark, my old friend from Tech TV, who is now host and producer of CISO Series at CISOseries.com. Hi, David.
Hello, Leo. It's so great to see you again. We have decades of history together.
Decades of history. Oh, my God. Yes, it is great to see you again. Welcome back to our microphones. Also with us from Bloomberg, he is technology editor, but more recently, the host of their incredible AI show, AI IRL, a Bloomberg original. And Nate, it's always a pleasure to see you and your drum kit. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me back. I didn't realize this was the last live show of the year. I feel like I should have put my Santa's outfit on.
I realize this is a red smoking jacket, but I realize it actually makes me look like Hugh Hefner, which is not.
I realize the intonation on it sounded like an accusation that you addressed to Santa. I actually know that's a smoking jacket because you've worn it before.
Yes,
I do feel I should have dressed as Santa.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
Do they have Santa in England?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Allegedly. I haven't seen him for a while.
That was very uncertain.
Well, I was trying to think of what's a really British joke to make about Santa, but I couldn't think of one that wasn't really offensive. So I just went with, sure, we have him.
And that lovely voice to your left is, of course, Brianna Wu. New job, progressive victory at progress.win. Hello, Brianna.
So good to see you. It's the Boston pinball takeover of your show, Leo.
Oh, God.
Although
I don't live in Boston. I'm on the other coast.
Yeah, but you're from Boston. That's close enough.
I did not plan this.
Spirit.
Apparently, David and Brianna have been talking for the last half hour about pinball.
That's
We're both
right.
fanatics.
That's right.
Well, you only have
we could
3 machines. That's hardly.
That's right.
I know I'm pathetic with only 3, but I'm growing it. I'm growing.
Those are rookie numbers. You got to pump that up.
All right. Well, we probably get a little pinball talk in here. You put a picture of you. Can I show this on the air? Or,
Yeah, go ahead.
Of
Sure.
you and your son at some sort of, I don't know, pinball expo or something.
This was the Riverside competition. This is like kind of a big open competition. And the guy who's there with the beard, that is Keith Elwin. And for those of you in the pinball know, two significant things about pinball. He's an amazing player, but more importantly, he has designed 5 of pretty much the best pinball machines out there: Godzilla, Jurassic Park, Iron Maiden, Avengers, and the anniversary edition of the
come on.
James Bond machine.
James Bond's
They're
60th
so
SLE.
complicated and so deep. They're spectacular machines.
Put some flippers in.
Great.
You put 5 big silver balls in, some bumpers, a picture of Gilligan's Island, you're done. What could be so difficult?
By the way, that's a great question. And Brianna, I want you to start off, explain to the people who don't get it, why is pinball so much fun and such a big deal?
So you spend so much of your life staring at screens. Pinball it has like all the same reward centers of playing video games, like understanding complicated rules, very difficult execution on it. But it's like this physical experience in front of you. So it's really, really rewarding. It's a great way to make friends. And it's a really, really, really deep hobby, because it's not just playing pinball, it's also repairing pinball and keeping the machines up and running, which is very difficult sometimes.
I had no idea pinball was still a thing, let alone
it's
something
huge.
Such a huge deal.
It's had a major resurgence. Actually, Stern, the largest manufacturer, just rebuilt new manufacturing facilities, and they went from, I believe, just a single manufacturing line to now they have a facility with 3 manufacturing lines on it.
Yep.
And this isn't the same reason that things like cassette tapes come back, that the next generation down.
By the way, this generation of pinball machines are so deep and so complex. Let me give you just a brief idea. If you look at the older machines, like the electromechanical machines, the ones that maybe even had the physical dials that would turn, the rule set on those machines you could probably fit on an index card. The newer machines, the one I was explaining, the Keith Elwin machines, those rules are 25 pages deep. It is a very complex series of risks and rewards all throughout the game. And that's kind of what makes these, especially the newer machines, a lot of fun because of how deep and complex. I mean, it's kind of a lifetime to be able to try to master one of these machines.
That's right. But it's also very accessible. One of the things pinball has gotten better at in the last few years is making it accessible for normal people. The game I just bought, Venom, is fantastic because a new player can beat that as long as they keep playing it, because you level up every single time you play and it saves your progress. So, no, the thing about pinball is there's been this history that's been going on in parallel to the video game industry for the last 30 years. And then you look around and you're like, oh my gosh, I've just been missing all of it. And there's 30 years of amazing stuff to discover. It's really rewarding.
I'm going to have to make a video about this at one day. We'll come back to this.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, I was introduced to pinball when I was in college, because like many people, they think, oh, just you knock the ball around, you try to keep it in air. But you don't understand that, again, these series of risks and rewards, and you're trying to aim for things, and you're trying to control the ball, because that's what makes a good pinball player, is they can make their shots and they can control the ball. You know, the better the player can do that kind of a thing. And then once I understood, there's actually a pattern to all this, then I started getting very addicted to it.
One of the things that seems to be a trademark of this era, perhaps because of the internet, is exactly this, which is there are microcosms of enthusiasts who are absolutely passionate about, home pickling or pinball or Pez dispensers. And because of the internet, they can meet, they can get together, and they get even more involved. Do you think that has always been that way, or is this something new? I'm sure there were, in the 50s, there were car fanatics and stereo fanatics and pinball fanatics. But do you think it's gotten more fragmented?
We can find each other easier. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right. It's easy to find them.
That's true, but pinball's almost a throwback in the sense
Well, it
that,
is.
Call of Duty online, so many like Final Fantasy 14 online.
There are far more people
Pinball,
playing Call of Duty than there are playing pinball. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's a really, really, really big industry, actually. Like numerically, we've got 4 new pinball manufacturers have launched. Who are the people that just launched the Labyrinth table? You've got Spooky is kicking butt. American is doing very well this year.
A lot of new manufacturers that didn't
100%.
exist before.
It is absolutely exploding.
Yeah, but we also have 2 new record stores selling vinyl records at Petaluma. I wouldn't necessarily say that is the renaissance.
Well, but the thing is, the vinyl record isn't changing. The new pinball machines are
a new kind of thing.
I mean, they have video screens, and they actually they update the code virtually. And by the way, all these machines now being made are all internet connected, and you can track your scores against other people. So
I rest my case.
It is definitely a more modern technology.
And do people stream themselves playing pinball machines?
Yes. In fact, Dead Flip streams so much, he actually got a chance to make a game called Foo Fighters, and it was amazing. So absolutely. It's a huge counterculture, like just as a market share, it's exploding. Like it's really big business.
Well, yeah, no kidding. I'm looking at the price list for Stern's new Godzilla pinball accessories. If you want a Godzilla Heat Ray Destruction topper, you can get it for $1,000, or a Mothra egg shooter knob. That's $179.99. The King Ghidorah side armor, $289. Godzilla's Ghidorah. Sorry, pardon me. Oh my! Woo! I should never get it wrong because you have a dog named after Kaiju.
Kaiju, yes, Kaiju.
That's the name of the battles in Godzilla.
Oh Lord! Ay. So I rest my case.
Much.
And actually, podcasting's benefited from that because there's a podcast about every one of these things, or many. There's a YouTube
there's
channel.
Many pinball podcasts.
Yeah, there's YouTube channels. There's websites. I mean, the internet facilitates this.
Hi, Leo. This is Benito.
Hi, Benito.
I'm also a pinball enthusiast. By the way.
Another one. Oh, we're in deep trouble. Benito put this panel together. Now I know what's going on.
The simplest explanation I can give you for the popularity of pinball is it's physics the game.
It's physics.
Yes.
But
what's your favorite game?
Wait a minute. Before you say that, don't you get bored that it's the same game? I mean, you have to have 10 of them. You have to have 3 of them.
No. I'm telling you, these games are so complex. The newer ones are crazy complex.
Yeah, see, I've only played old pinball, I guess. Benito, do you have a pinball game at home?
I don't have a bank account to.
We don't pay you well enough.
A pinball machine.
Yeah.
But to answer Brianna's question, my favorite game was Jurassic Park. And
I have one of those.
Which he owns.
My favorite one was Sorcerer. We had a Sorcerer team.
I own it too. It's a great game.
In college.
It is a great game.
So, Benito, if we were going to buy a pinball game for TWiT.
Oh, I would want Jurassic Park.
Or Godzilla.
Godzilla looks fun too.
Here's the big difference between those two games. Jurassic Park is a very linear game where you're going in a very sort of straight direction, trying to achieve. You're going from like one point to another point. Godzilla is multidimensional. There's lots of things going on at any given time, so you're constantly making risk-reward choices all throughout the game.
I just want the T-Rex to eat the ball.
By the way, I think I mentioned last time I was on, I highly recommend people check out pinballmap.com.
I love that
find
site.
where the closest pinball machines are near you.
Loading now.
I feel like this would be such a productivity killer.
I really hope we don't get to the news.
Yeah, at this point, I have no interest. I feel like this would be such a... By the way, there's the Mothra egg shooter. I feel like this would be such a productivity killer if we got one of these for the studio.
I have never missed a meeting because I was playing pinball ever, Leo. Come on.
No, this is a great 5 to 10 minute break that you need quickly, because unlike video games where you get sucked in minimum an hour, this actually you can.
Are your games only 5 to 10 minutes?
Really?
Well, some Godzilla games.
I've had longer games.
Right? But plenty of Godzilla games have been that short.
I am so good at Venom. My average game is like 20 minutes at this point. I'm so good at that game. Yeah.
That's not
good. I went
Venom
to
is
pinball
cool
map.
as you can control the balls easier in that game, I've noticed.
Pinball map?
I went to pinball map, as you said, and I thought I was going to type in where I live and think, this will just be just a whole bunch of places in Portland and the US and stuff. Nope. loads around where I am. There's one just a few miles away. It has Godzilla. It has Foo Fighters. It has James Bond's 60th anniversary.
Machines.
Oh, that's the ultra rare one I have. That's really. There are only 500 of those.
Yep.
And I
one
believe they're
here.
signed by Keith, I believe, on those.
Yes, it is.
Wow. So I might go and check one of these out. You've inspired me. That's not anything I thought I was going to learn tonight.
It looks like there is a hook, which that doesn't sound very good, from 1992 at our local sports bar.
That's Data East, isn't it?
Let's see what we got at the Willowbrook Ale House. Has Guardians of the Galaxy Pro.
Good machine.
Good. No,
it's okay.
It's okay.
What else you got?
Here's Buffalo Billiards. Got the Mandalorian Pro. They've got the Sopranos. You like the Mandalorian?
Stinks. That one's awful. That is a bad game.
Pinky's has Terminator 2 Judgment Day from 1991. Yes. Good one? Classic.
Good game.
Call that a classic. Kapu, which is our new tiki bar downtown.
Fireball,
Fireball, Flash Gordon, Genie, Lost World. It's got 4 of them.
Those are all classics.
Okay. So that's what they went with the 70s. They obviously are 70s fans. Oh, I found a Godzilla Pro.
This is it.
I found
Godzilla
a Star Wars Pro and a Tommy.
Star Wars Pros. Star Wars Pros, okay. Yeah. Anything else?
Star Wars. No, that's it.
Their point systems like all over the map. That's what my problem.
I don't think it's really well thought through. I'm sorry. I don't think the field.
Well, I'm so glad we could do this mini pinball show.
I'm so sorry. Is this better than talking about politics?
No politics. Tech news. It's a tech news show. Actually, I wonder if Mark Zuckerberg put a pinball machine in his 5,000 square foot underground bunker that he's building in Kauai. Maybe that's how he's going to have the rest, and enjoy life after Armageddon. I bet you Mark's got a few good pinball games down there. Did you see this story? This is from Wired. Micah said he loved the line that said, almost anyone who passes compound security, from carpenters to electricians to painters to security guards, is bound by a strict non-disclosure agreement, according to several workers involved in the project.
I got real SBF vibes reading this,
It's creepy.
His Bermuda compound. I got flashbacks from all the reporting.
This SBF could only dream. Samuel Bankman-Fried could only dream of what Mark Zuckerberg is building. He's bought a significant portion of Kauai, which is the Garden Island in Hawaii. But apparently,
isn't this the one that the Oracle CEO owns? Yes.
No, that's an island. That's Lanai. That's another one. He owns an island also off Maui. That's a different billionaire. But I have to think that, okay, so this is Mark's place.
By the way, if you own an island, you can afford a pinball machine.
This is not, he does not own the island. He only owns a significant portion of the island. It's a big island. I've been there, and it's beautiful. The natives are not thrilled with it.
Villain vibes.
Very Bond villain, especially when you read about the 5,000 square foot underground shelter. That's, I guess, his plan for the end of the world. The 2 central mansions will be joined by a tunnel that branches off into a 5,000 square foot underground shelter featuring living space, a mechanical room, and an escape hatch that can be accessed via a ladder. It has its own food and water and electricity supply. It's completely self-sufficient.
But you know what? If you're a billionaire and you're thinking about what do I do with, a few $100 million, why wouldn't you build an island and put a bunker on it? I would.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I don't mind the island paradise, but the bunker kind of creeps me out. Right?
Well,
I don't know.
The bunker defeats the purpose of the island paradise.
Why would you?
It's not mutually exclusive, right? You can have the island and you just have the bunker just in case something goes wrong.
Well, do you? Okay, so I suspect that we know this about Mark, but pretty much everybody with the money, it has built this, panic room for the end times. But doesn't that say something about? That says something about our society that they're planning for the end times.
I don't think it's like the end of the world.
What do they know
that
we don't know?
Yeah,
I think it's people who will target them. This has always been my assumption. It's never about the end of the world. It's like, okay, you build this place out in the middle of nowhere, and if you've got somebody who has the means and motive to get to that island, they're probably going to stick around to try and finish whatever they got there to start. Right. So you probably need a bunker that's self-sufficient. That's just my guess. I do not know. I do not own a bunker. I would love a bunker, probably for the same reason. But
so I have a different opinion on this. It was a few weeks ago. I think it was Robert Reich a few months ago that started talking about like the radicalization of Elon Musk and kind of talking about a lot of these tech figures have gotten really rich. He wrote a really good op-ed in the Times about this and how they seem to go down these paths of paranoia and get weirder and weirder and weirder, and looking at a lot of like the entire venture capital class and how they've kind of gotten this way. And I think Elon is a really, really good example. I would guess that when you have that much money, you're surrounded with people constantly that just enable your absolute worst impulses, and there's no limit on it. So I would imagine that like a low sense of paranoia inevitably comes on, and of course they're going to do projects like this.
Douglas Rushkoff, we've actually had him on the show to talk about this, wrote a book called Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires. He actually was summoned by 5 billionaires to a desert resort for a private talk on how to survive the event. That's what they call it. A societal catastrophe they see coming, whether it's because of climate change or income inequality or the attack of the AIs. You know, it depends on who you're talking to. But they're building silos in abandoned ICBM missile silos. They're building little bunkers in there. They're doing it all over the world. And I just think it's telling that some of the richest, most powerful, and presumably best connected people in the world think that the end times are nigh. Maybe we've always thought that.
I love that he refers to it as the event, because there's this, well, it's not a sitcom, it's like a sketch show by these comedians, Mitchell and Webb, who do this joke, this sketch about the event that's never referred to by anything other than the event, but you infer that it is a nuclear apocalypse, and just a few survivors have scraped together enough resources to live in this bunker, and they're broadcasting this game show from underground, and they just refer to it as the event. It's very, very funny. You should look it up.
Neil Stephenson calls it the jackpot in his, what book is that? He actually has a trilogy called The Jackpot, but the one was made into a TV show recently.
Does he have a new book out? I've never heard of this one. Oh my gosh.
So Peripheral was the first. No, I'm sorry. That's not it. That was William Gibson. I'm sorry. I apologize. Not Stevenson. Peripheral was the first. And it's an interesting story. Amazon made it into a decent show, but read the book. The premise is that very wealthy people in the future, post-jackpot, and at first he doesn't really say what the jackpot is, but it's some sort of apocalyptic event that happens in the near future, that they're able to harness, almost enslave people from pre-jackpot times using a technology they don't fully understand. It's a great book. But yeah, he calls it the jackpot. I think that's kind of in the culture, but maybe it always has been, because, I mean, that's what Christians thought was that, the end of times was coming for 2,000 years.
Here became the issue with the end of times. It's not just the building of the location, but the people who are going to work for you during the end of times. And then there was this whole thing of how do you keep people working for you and loyal to you? And there was talk, honest to God, of literally putting collars on people.
To. Think about it.
Yeah.
So you're going to have people guarding your bunker, your 5,000 square foot bunker on Kauai. But what's to stop them from just saying, hey, Mark, Priscilla, get out. This is ours now. They've got all the muscle. So you'd have to do something.
Right, because there might be, if it's the end of times, there's no economy. What is money going to mean to them at that point?
Yeah.
This all just sounds like a metaphor for Facebook. Having like a collar around your neck, no concept of money and finance. That all sounds kind of suspect, right?
You've been doing a show on AI, and I have to think, I want to talk a little, I'll tell you what, let's take a little break. I want to talk a little bit about AI because early on with these LLMs, ChatGPT and its brethren, I was very skeptical because it's like, oh, great, it can write a kind of semi-mediocre paragraph. To me, it was spicy autocorrect. I thought it was a parlor trick. But it's getting better and better and more useful. And I this weekend, I talked with a guy who works in the field. He's worked at Google and Microsoft. He has his own company now. He's really intimately connected with what's going on in AI. And he had a point of view I found almost shocking. So I want to take a break. And since this is the field that you cover, Nate, I'd love to talk with you. And, of course, David and Brianna, I'm sure you have opinions on this as well. This is maybe one of the scenarios for the event is an AI apocalypse. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Great panel here. I appreciate all of you joining me. Last show of the year. It's fitting we should end on an apocalyptic note. Maybe the last show ever. This could be it.
What would make your audience happier?
An ad from ACI Learning, probably, I'm thinking. Thank you, David. You know them. They were, by the way, I want to thank them because this is the last episode that they've been the studio sponsor for all of 2023. This is the last episode for that. We really appreciate what they've done. And you may be saying, well, wait a minute, who's ACI Learning? You may know them better as IT Pro TV, longtime sponsors since the day they started. IT Pro TV is now part of ACI Learning. And I tell you, this is a partnership made in heaven. Let's start by talking about your IT team. You know, many of you use ACI Learning to get into IT, but what about people who run an IT team or your IT team at work? David, you'd know this. 94% of CIOs and CISOs agree attracting and retaining talent is job one. There is a huge shortage of cybersecurity experts, of talent in the world. And if you've got a team with today's IT talent shortage, it's more important than ever for you to keep that team, keep them up to speed, keep them learning, keep them happy. And that's where ACI Learning can come in. Furthermore, 87% of companies say they have skill gaps in their teams, in their IT teams. The challenge of assessing your IT staff skills can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be because ACI Learning has a great new tool called Insights, which is a revolutionary skills gap analysis tool. So the training you're providing works, is not redundant, is not boring, and nothing worse than learning something you already know, right? So with Insights, you can find out with a quick 1-hour assessment exactly what the skills gaps are in your IT team and not only understand them, but fix them. It's a solution every IT manager wants. With Insights, you can identify specific skills gaps in your employees. You can see where your team's weaknesses lie. And then empower your team with personalized training in areas they need work in, but they're going to enjoy because it's not redundant training. It's training in stuff they want to know, they need to know, and it's training that's done so well and so engagingly that they are going to love it. And this is personalized training because blanket training just wastes your time, wastes your money. Insights offers detailed solution support strategy by issuing recommendations and a training plan. It'll actually spit out a training plan for your whole team or individuals on the team. And furthermore, you can compare your results against other organizations so you know where you stand. Test skills, close the gaps with practical labs that allow trainees to focus on the skills they need most. ACI Learning, it helps you retain your team and entrust them to thrive while investing in the security of your business. More than 7,200 hours of content available with new episodes added daily. ACI Learning stomps the competition with a 50% higher completion rate. These are the training solutions your business has been waiting for. Future-proof your team and your company with Insights from ACI Learning. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. Twit listeners, your discount's going to be as high as 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Depends on the size of your team. Here's what you do. Go there, fill out the form, and you'll find out just how much you can save with go.acilearning.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support all year long of This Week in Tech and all of our shows. Thank you, ACI Learning. So...
Actually, by the way, Leo, can I double down on something about you said in the sponsor read?
Sure.
Is that there is this mistaken belief that if I train my staff, I will train them and then they will leave. And all the data that we have seen is the complete opposite of that. You train them and they actually stay because they know that, if I stay here, I will improve my skills.
I think good training is a benefit. It's like, more vacation time. It's a benefit. And people who are in IT are not in it to, well, we hope anyway, just to kind of slack off. They like what they're doing. They want to learn more and they want to get better at their job. And yeah, they're not going to leave. They're going to be happy. So thank you for confirming that. I appreciate it. So AI apocalypse. Now I have to think, you go back in time, every era has had, an end of times. When I was growing up as a kid, we were doing duck and cover drills under our desks because, it was very much in the back of our mind that there might be a nuclear fallout or annihilation. And maybe we did come pretty close a few times. Yeah. I don't know if we fully dodged that in the future, but now we're not as worried about that. I think climate change, running out of resources like food and water, and then there's a new one, the AI apocalypse. Nate, before I talk about my crazy friend, I'm sure you've done a lot, in your show AI IRL, you've talked a lot about this. There's AI doomers, people like Elon Musk, who says AI poses an existential risk to humanity. But there's also AI accelerationists who say, don't hold it back, let it go. It's the next big thing. Where do you come down on this?
Personally, I'm really boring because I'm right in the middle. I'm neither a doomsayer nor am I an optimist. That's the boring reality to this. And yeah, we have done a lot on the show with this. We've had doomers on, we've had optimists on, and we've tried to keep things pretty level-headed. The argument for the doomsayers a lot of the time is either something along the lines of, we don't fully understand how these things work, and therefore we should control them, or we should keep them in check. Or there are people that go a step further and say, well, it's only a matter of time before their capabilities will become so great that self-improvement and self-replication and self-development becomes so great that they develop themselves, they don't need us. And I've even heard arguments that go far further that say, that try and argue that, well, even if you say, well, just pull the plug, like these things need electricity to run and they need a lot of it, so just press the off switch, problem solved. They will argue that a sufficiently capable system will so intrinsically understand the nature of the human mind that it will successfully persuade you not to unplug it.
Or it will anticipate it and find alternate sources of energy or something like that.
Yeah, and when these are in novels, I find them wildly entertaining. And a lot of books that I've read, I've read a lot of books about this stuff, by futurists. I sometimes think you just put this in the novel category and this would be fantastic. In fact, actually, Kai-Fu Lee, an amazing guy, he co-wrote actually a book called AI 2040 or something, or 2041, I think, where he sort of wrote 10 futures or possible futures based on where the technology actually is today and where it could be in 20 years time. And some of it touched on quantum technology and a lot of it was about AI and data harvesting and privacy and stuff. But it actually felt like a nice balanced version of sort of prediction and looking down into the future. And that's kind of where I like things to be. It's like, well, let's not make it all terrible. Like, let's be cautious. Let's be optimistic. Let's be careful. I think that whole suggestion to pause things for 6 months, I think I don't think it would have worked anyway.
It's a terrible idea.
But I also, I don't think, how pause what? You can't pause things.
Chinese aren't going to stop. Who are you going to pause? And it almost seems self-serving, like Elon saying, can you just hold on, OpenAI, can you just hold on a minute so I can catch up? Because I don't think Elon was going to pause his efforts. So
that's how it felt. But I think overall, I think that there are reasons to listen to even the most extreme viewpoints. And I personally enjoy hearing extreme viewpoints on either side of the political spectrum and on either side of the debate around anything, because I feel like if you ignore all views, then you're not at least considering, a possibility that an element of what they're talking about could be correct, which you then check and then things are good. So that's how I approach it. And I'm personally not worried about a robot uprising, an AI uprising, because that's the other thing. I think there is this massive, and this is actually incredibly relevant to the episode of our show that's going out.
You just
week.
did
And
the
all this
robot show.
unscripted.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's just about to come out. So the teasers have been starting to go out. But I didn't want to do an episode about robots at all because in my head, and I think to a lot of people, robots and AI are incredibly separate, both incredibly well advanced and have been in development for decades. But actually, to have an artificially intelligent robot is really, really hard, really far away in terms of making one useful or applicable or even affordable. And if you look at something like ChatGPT, it has no physical presence. It can't pick anything up. And yet you can see these amazing robots that have incredible versatility in what they can potentially do, and yet they can't write anything with a pen. And so these worlds are really far apart still. And I feel like a lot of the people who are worried sort of assume that the merging of AI and robotics is much closer and much more significantly advanced than it actually is. And that's where some of this fear comes from, which is understandable. But I think the onus is on us to sort of say, hey, we get it, but don't worry too much.
Brianna, I could feel you champing at the
No. I completely agree with Nate. I think that a lot of the doomsayers on this are completely just overblown. And Leo, I hope I've done TWiT enough at this point that I can say this. I am worried because it seems like you're getting an increasingly pessimistic attitude about everything.
I've changed my tune. Yes. Okay. So I'll tell you what has happened to me. Go ahead. You finish and I can tell you what's happened to me.
Okay. Well, it's just, I think if you take I agree with you that there are a lot of genuine threats to human survival right now. Climate change, we've obviously ignored it. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
I think it's done, to be honest. I don't think there's anything we can do to turn it around.
I think it's really hard to change this. I completely agree.
We lack the will, and even if we did at this point, it's almost too late.
But I think if you lived through the French Revolution, I think you probably had extreme worries that you're never going to have a stable government again, right?
Good point.
I think if you lived through I think if you lived through some of World War II, I think you probably despaired that there would ever be peace in the world again, right? Or the Great Depression. It just feels to me that humanity finds a way to survive and life finds a way to go on. So I'm not saying we don't take these things seriously, because it is going to, I think AI is going to disrupt human life the same way that social media has really disrupted I think human happiness on a fundamental level. I'm very worried about what's happening to this generation of young children. At the same time, I think it's true that mankind was not built to have this much information coming into us all the time. And I think it's clearly making all of us, myself included, more reactionary and more paranoid. And I think sometimes it's good to take a breath and take a longer view about where humanity has come from and where we're going.
Good point.
I completely agree. And I think that sometimes you're looking in one place for where you expect the doom to be. And in doing so, you ignore where the actual risk is. And I think the real world application of that argument right now would be, well, if you think it's going to come from AIs becoming sentient and self-aware and developing an understanding of what it means to be alive and then exploit it, you're not looking at the fact that AI processing takes up so much energy to both do and to cool and to keep cool, that it causes significant problems for other parts of the world, whether that's climate change, whether it is just a draw on the power grid, which makes clean energy more expensive, which means that, people below certain levels of income can't afford to be as green as they'd like. There's all these different things that can have knock-on effects. And I think that that's a real problem. But realistically, we're not going to get these sentient systems. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we anthropicize. Is that the term? We anthropomorphize,
which is a ridiculous word. Yes.
We anthropomorphize things in the same way. We think, well, this looks a little bit human-like. So it's like when you look back in the day, you would look up to Mars and you would, well, I say you, we probably didn't, but there was this expectation that there was this little face on Mars looking at us. And some people thought it's a beacon. It's the Martians saying, hey, we see you and we built this. And it's not, it's just a bunch of mountains and some shadows. And it's like the human brain is trained over millions of years to see itself in things. It's why you can look at a front of a barn and see a smiley face or something. And we see that in technology as well. And I think that's where a lot of this kind of human-like worry comes from. But it is coming from a genuine place a lot of the time. And I do think it's wrong to dismiss it. And I just think we should be better at saying, you're not stupid for thinking it, but here's the reasons why it is stupid.
It's called pareidolia. Pareidolia, which is the human tendency to see faces in things. It's just the way we're wired to see faces. Yeah. David, before I tell everybody what's really going to happen, do you want to weigh in?
Oh, hold on, wait. You've been teasing us all this time? You know the answer?
I actually have the answer.
Having us say the incorrect answers until you tell us the right one?
Yeah, I want you all to get it wrong first, and then I'll explain why you're wrong.
Oh man.
No, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure as all that. I'm just wondering, what do you think?
So I will just tell you, in our program when we talk to security professionals, guess what? This has come up a few times.
I bet. Yes.
Yeah. So the way it comes up in our environment is the fact that malicious actors are using AI tools. There's two issues. They're using AI tools to be more efficient in the way they do attacks. So this can be through social engineering efforts, that they can do more targeted efforts to more people. The other thing is the fact that the people at a company are unknowingly putting private information into these LLMs that they are unaware of, and all of a sudden you've got a PII issue, privately identifiable information issue, where now it's in these databases that you don't have any control of that could conceivably be yanked out by someone else. And then the other issue is, well, some people have proven that you could actually create zero-day malware using these tools. Now, you can't do it as simple as saying, hey, ChatGPT, code me a zero-day malware. Won't do that, but you can piece together the solution to do something like that. And there have been cases that have proven that as well. As a result, a recent IBM study showed that CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, are spending an enormous, significant portion of the budget on AI protections. There was more than 50% increase in budgets on just these things. A lot of it is very fear-based, but going back to the discussions about risk, CISOs operate on risk. They don't see themselves as security professionals, but more as risk professionals. And right now, at this very moment, it's not imposing the highest risk. There are other things that are imposing highest risk. And mostly it's the 2/3 of the attacks that we're seeing on companies right now are because somebody has compromised someone's credentials. And again, it could be through AI or something else, but that is kind of the biggest risk that most security professionals are looking out for now, are compromised credentials.
And that makes sense.
Which are done by very standard practices.
Because, I mean, they're if more than anyone concerned with quotidian issues right in front of them. They don't have time to say, well, what's going to happen in 2, 3, 5 years? They got to look at what's happening tomorrow, right?
Yeah. They have to worry about today and the future. I mean, it's like in anything, with any kind of a business plan, you can't just only think about today. You have to think about what's in your future. Same thing with security professionals. They do have to concern themselves with today, but they also have to have a security plan for the future. And for everyone, part of their security plan for the future is, how are they going to manage AI because, by the way, AI is an amazing tool for businesses. All security professionals know this, and there's a very small percentage, although there's in some cases required, that they are shutting down these AI tools like ChatGPT for the staff. Very small percentage. Most are trying to keep it open, but they're trying to educate the staff on how to use it wisely, which is like, don't put personally identifiable information into it.
That was initially, I thought it very interesting. IBM and a number of other companies said you may not use AI tools because it's going to leak our business information. I think wiser heads have prevailed. That was kind of almost a knee-jerk
By the way,
response.
there is a history of that. You should know there is a long, long history of people saying you can't use this technology, and consistently it's always failed. Always.
Right. I do think, however, that they should be worried about AI-created malware because, yes, the early days it's been very limited, but it's rapidly. See, the thing I think that we don't fully understand is the speed with which this is accelerating. And furthermore, it accelerates exponentially because as it gets better, it influences future generations faster than humans can. AI can learn from itself. And that's something that's hard to predict. It might well be exponential growth, you think?
There's two things with the speed argument. One, I think, is really clear when you look at the fact that ChatGPT itself is only, let's say, a year old, right? It was a year old last month. Everything that most people who have talked about over the last year to do with how amazing AI is and all the disruption and all the brilliant things that it can do, so much of the volume of that has been raised in the last 12 months alone. And that's why it feels so quick. It feels like the pace of of development is so quick, which it is. But AI has been in development for decades in some form. Not necessarily the generative stuff, not just the neural nets.
Oh, I've been through 3 AI winters in my lifetime. Exactly. I've seen this come and go many times.
So what I think is interesting is you look at where these bursts of development come from, and they look really fast, but they're actually built on, I don't want to say built on the shoulders of giants, but you know what I mean? It's like there is huge amounts of work that comes before it, and then you get this big explosion of interest for some particular reason. In this case, it's because of the deep learning and because of access to the data on the web, and who knows what the next one will be. But it's like, it's not a flash in the pan, but nor is it a brand new thing that we have to fear is just being created out of nowhere and no one can control. It's more nuanced than that, and that's what I find so fascinating about this.
I should point out this story from the MIT Technology Review from a couple of days ago. Google's DeepMind has just recently, one of the things we thought LLMs couldn't do is math. And this was a big issue earlier on, and Stephen Wolfram wrote an article saying, well, you ought to use Wolfram Alpha in conjunction with an AI so you can actually do math. DeepMind used a large language model to solve a math problem that has been unsolved for centuries. That's a big deal. So DeepMind actually ended up writing a Python code, a Python script that solved a fundamental math and computer science problem.
Yeah, I think
that's a big deal.
Didn't he try and create the code that could solve it? Like, did it solve the problem, or did it create code that could solve the problem?
It created code that did solve the problem.
Yeah.
In a paper published in Nature on December 14th, researchers say it's the first time I'm reading from the MIT Technology Review, a large language model has been used to discover a solution to a long-standing scientific puzzle. And this is the key phrase. Remember this: producing verifiable and valuable new information that did not previously exist. It wasn't in the training data. It wasn't known. Now, this is very significant because up to now, we've assumed LLMs are simply repackaging material that's scraped from the net in a new form, but not inventing. We talked about how you would judge an artificial general intelligence. It's one thing to analyze a movie and say what the emotional threads were in this movie because it's seen a lot of reviews of the movie. But what if it was a movie no one had ever seen before? Could it do the same thing? Well, now for the first time, we have proof that an LLM can, in fact, create new material. That is a huge... That busts a lot of things that were reassuring people about LLMs. It is a major step towards artificial general intelligence. And what's interesting to me is this is happening rapidly as we speak. They're starting to write code. This friend I was talking to yesterday said, I don't write code anymore. He said, I have ChatGPT. I said, you use Copilot, which is the GitHub solution. No, he said, I just have ChatGPT write it. I'll vet it, and I might change things in a few things, but I don't, he says, people aren't going to, I said, I'd like to learn how to code this stuff. He says, don't. You don't need to. People will not be coding. Well, he also now, by the way, this guy
for a long time.
Well, but this
Leo.
guy's
They've been
working
saying that for a
directly in it.
long time.
He's got a computer science and an EE degree. He knows he's immersed in this stuff. He's an accelerationist. Now, I have to say there are different groups around all of this now, and the accelerations are the most bullish. Their point of view is this. By the way, there was a great article we talked about last week from the New York Times from 2015. It was just before, it was why OpenAI was founded. Larry Page, Elon Musk sitting around a campfire up here in Napa at a retreat with a bunch of other people watching on, and Larry Page pitching the future of AI, and Elon saying, well, what about humans? You got to protect humans. We got to think about safety. To which Larry says, Elon, you're a speciesist. This is a new species. You are defending humans against the next thing. You're a speciesist. To which Elon turned around, started OpenAI with the plan of being safe. By the way, that was the reason for OpenAI, and never spoke to Larry Page again. But Larry represents I think, a significant portion of AI researchers, scientists, big thinkers who actually think, now this is what I was going to say. Yes, you said I was a pessimist, right? Maybe I still am a pessimist. I don't know. We've gone through 5 years of doldrums in technology, right? It's just been nothing. And, the big stories were, cryptocurrency, give me a break, ransomware, that's a happy subject. And so for me as a technology journalist, it's been tough. It's been like, can I get excited about the new feature in the iPhone 15? Well, now we have a technology that is actually about to, I think, at least I think it's a possibility. I'm not sure, but I think it's about to change things more dramatically than the internet or personal computing. It is about to change things dramatically. My friend said, this is a new species. This is first contact. This is an intelligence that we are creating that is going to and he said the next 10 years are going to be, these were his words exactly, really weird.
I think that's how Demis Hassabis described AlphaGo. He said there was a move. Was it move 37?
That's right.
When he was playing Lisa Doll.
That's right.
And he said it plays like an alien.
Human move.
Yeah.
It was the right move. It was a brilliant move, but no human would ever play it.
Yeah. And I think it's fascinating because it's basically looking at something that is not being confined by the limitations that we put on ourselves when we're solving problems that only a machine can do, partly because it can try so many of them and see which ones work. But I agree, it's very different.
I want to come back to something you were saying earlier, Leo. We have been proclaiming the end of coders for my entire career, right? I heard this in the 90s. I heard it about 10 years ago, and I'm hearing it now. And, what I think, at least what I see, is for really high-level tasks, you can pump out like some crappy spaghetti code, right? But if you're working on a team for a lot of people, what are the skills that are going to make you able to thrive long-term in computer science? Right. It's documenting your code so other people can use it. It's the ability to pick up new, work with new technologies and apply them. And it's optimization. I cannot tell you how many times, I've had a friend who's had to go into some crappy code base, right, and refactor it. Right.
This is the bread. Brianna,
hold
don't
on,
you see this?
Hold on.
Let
me finish what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I think that the skills that we are going to see, especially as if you look at the way Apple has gone, right? So much of getting metal to work and so much of making your battery life last for a long time on a Mac is about code optimization, right? And processor optimization. And I don't accept, I think that there's going to be a place for this, but I do think it's going to look more like Copilot. And I think someone like your friend, with all respect, I don't know him personally, but I think if he's not willing to write his own code, is just going to generate it out, I don't think he's going to have a long career, and I don't think he's going to solve interesting problems, just flat out.
David?
Don't you see this as really just an evolutionary step? Let's think about the history of
No, it's
coding.
not evolution, it's revolution.
Well, no, but it isn't. But in evolution, we have hockey stick moments. This is a hockey stick moment.
Yeah.
For
so it's not evolutionary in the sense that it's kind of
line item
a nice,
coding
smooth...
to object oriented, and and lots of things. And then we have code bases like GitHub where we can take snippets of code that other people have done. Now we're the next evolutionary step. And yes, it is revolutionary, but it is an evolutionary step. It still needs to be managed. That's the big thing. Everything still needs to be managed because like anything, you need to give it some kind of direction. So it is going to require a type of wisdom. The thing, though,
I feel like you guys are buggy whip makers saying, but they'll always need a horse, right? We'll always need a horse.
I don't believe they will need a horse. No, I would think like if I was an artist right now, I'd be very scared for my profession because of the DALL-E and Midjourney about how amazing.
I'm almost saying
generation
that's the least of your worries.
But I'm pointing one example out.
He said, no, I understand. But the problem is there's not going to be any money in 5 years. There is such a massive shift. Now, believe me, I'm not convinced of this, but I think it's a very interesting proposition that I don't think is far-fetched. There may be such a massive shift ahead. Yeah, of course, artists are worried. You know what? We don't even know what it's going to look like in 10 years. And that's
I'll just point out
that's
really
what's
quick.
interesting
Well, if you look at
to me.
The most visual representation is these image generating programs like Midjourney and DALL-E. I mean, I was introduced to it. Actually,
DeepMind just solved a scientific proof that was unsolvable, that it came up with something no one had thought of before. That's to me more than I'm going to make a drawing based on, 5,000 images I've ingested. That's very different. I think there's Nate, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say, it's funny that you mention artists because my wife is an artist. Her job is as a designer and illustrator. And she has asked me a lot this year about AI. She's very interested in it for all the reasons you would expect. And I've been trying to explain to her that in a weird sort of way, all you need to do is stay one step ahead of the people with no talent. Because as long as you've got talent and you've got some skill, then you're always going to be at an advantage compared to the person who has no skill and relies on the AI. And I'll give you a couple of examples that I'm basically just paraphrasing from her, which is apparently in a bunch of subreddits around Photoshop and Illustrator and Firefly and all this sort of thing. There are people who are trying to find out what style of art something is because they've created something using AI and they need to justify what it is. So they're having to go to forums to ask, what is this thing that I've created? Which is such a weird world to live in. But she's like, it really underscores where the difference is now between people with access to these tools and people who can use it and do use it, but don't need to use it. And it is being able to communicate what you have done, why you have done it, how you can improve it, why it's right, why it's wrong, why could it be better. And for a professional right now, the advantage is almost entirely still in their court because the people who just want to do something quickly, there's no adapting and there's very little ability to differentiate yourself from anybody else who can do exactly the same thing right now, currently. That, as you say, will all change. We don't know what it'll look like in 5 years or 10 years. But if you are just paying attention to this stuff, not seeing it as a threat, as an enemy. And this is what Kate's doing, is looking at these tools, playing with them, trying them out, incorporating bits. And it's a tool like anything else when I've seen her learning to use Photoshop or Illustrator or Procreate, using an iPad instead of a tablet on a desktop, or using both, or using one for sketching and then using the other one for a final thing. Like, it's about moving something into a workflow that works for you. And I feel that what I've seen from my limited perspective is that the people who embrace that are at least at a lower risk of having their lunches eaten than people who don't.
What your wife needs to prove is that she, an artist with an AI image generating tool, can operate better than me or somebody else who has no artistic talent using the same AI tool. Yeah. That is the edge she needs to have. And if she has it, then she can work. But the question is, can I, with no artistic talent whatsoever, produce the same results as her? Probably not, because she has a more designer eye than I have. But that's essentially the edge that you would need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the conversations that come up between whether it's employers or clients, well, could we tweak this? Can we change that? Or, yeah, this is a good start, but actually we'd quite like something a bit more like this, or it needs to fit in these templates, or, oh, the printer sent back a different dimension, or there's no bleed around the edges, all these little tiny things that someone who doesn't fundamentally understand how to change or alter their image or their product, like they can't do that unless they potentially paid a lot of attention to prompt engineering and understanding how to be iterative and seeing generative AI as a journey and not just you type in what you want and you get it.
But that again
iterative.
Requires your wife to know the skill of these tools. And these tools are getting complex. Like, for example, I noticed one thing that Midjourney does now is you can create like a style template, if you will, and apply it to a whole series of images. So if there's a style you created you like, and you want to create multiple images in that style, there's essentially you generate a code and you can attach it to all of that. I mean, that's extraordinarily powerful new version that it has. I mean,
and these
I visually see the I mean, I agree with you, Leo. Like the fact that this has created something out of whole cloth that has never been seen before, the sort of the solving of the code. I agree with you, but the visual representation of these image generating tools, me personally watching Midjourney over the past year, a little over a year and a half, how much it's progressed in that period of time has become quite astonishing. And I'm behind the 8 ball on it. I'm very much behind on it.
We're going to take a little break. We'll come back. There's still a lot more to talk about. I hate to cut it off, but I have to take a break. David Spark is here, our CISO series guru, host and producer of CISO series, CISOseries.com. Nate Lanxon, tech editor at Bloomberg. He's in the UK, and his show is on Bloomberg Originals, AIIRL. I think it's going to be must-watch TV for sure. Nice to see you, Nate. And from Brianna Wu from the, I guess I'll say, Progressive Victory at Progress.win. Yeah,
That's
new job. But we know Brianna as a game developer, a pinball wizard, and a Boxster lover.
And the second fastest Princess Peach speedrunner on Earth. Don't forget that.
Yeah. By the way, okay, this is a good example. If a computer beat you as a speedrunner, it'd be meaningless, right? Of course it can.
They do it all the time.
They do it all the time.
Yeah.
It hasn't taken the fun of speedrunning away. I play chess. Right. Computers can now, your phone can now beat the best human alive. That doesn't take the enjoyment away from chess. It raises issues of cheating. Enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, so we use TAS, tool-assisted speedruns, to figure out how to optimize strategy. I'll give you one example. For Super Mario 64, we spent years figuring out for this one thing you can like ride around this carpet to go up and get the star. And we used a TAS to like automate thousands of jumping scenarios.
That's what chess masters do. Yes.
Backward long jump off the wall and get to the top 100%. Right.
So it's not, I mean, of course a computer can beat you in a speed run or beat you in chess. That doesn't take away the human level pleasure of it. For a human to do it is still a big deal.
It's not fun to watch it, right?
Right.
It's not, no one's going to watch a TAS.
It's no it's no big deal. Actually, people enjoy watching computers play chess, but it's not, that doesn't take away the human pleasure. I thought it would when this happened, by the way, when the computer beat Garry Kasparov years ago. There was definitely the feeling that that's it for chess. Who's going to want to play it? But no, we found out humans like to play chess. I think humans will always create art. I don't think that that's going to ever go away. That's not what I'm saying. But we'll find out what I'm saying when we continue. Our show today brought to you by Delete Me. Have you ever searched for your name online? Oh, don't. Just don't. It's painful. So much PII is online. I'm talking how much money you make, where you live, what your phone number is, your email, who your relatives are. It's a terrible feeling. That's why you need Delete Me. Delete Me saw this coming. They started in 2010, and ever since they've been on a mission to empower individuals and organizations by allowing them to reclaim their privacy and help them remove personal data from online sources. And I know very well about Delete Me because Lisa's been using it for more than a year, and it's made a huge difference. Delete Me's team is driven by a passion for privacy and a commitment to making it simple for customers to use. Delete Me helps reduce risk from identity theft, credit card fraud, robocalls, spam, cybersecurity threats, harassment, and unwanted communications overall. Delete Me. Remember this name. It's the most trusted privacy solution out there, helping thousands of customers remove their personal information online. The average person has more than 2,000 pieces of data about them online. Delete Me can find it and remove it, and more importantly, can keep it off. One customer said, I signed up, they took it from there. Awesome service, already seeing results. I'll tell you why this is a security issue, and you'll know all about this, David. Our employees got a text from Lisa, the CEO, saying, I'm in a meeting and I can't get out, but I need somebody to order a bunch of Amazon gift cards so we can give them to staff. Can you do this for me? Now, our employees are smart, but the fact that some bad actor out there knew who Lisa was, knew what her phone number was, knew who her direct reports were, knew what their phone numbers are, really tells you why you need Delete Me. This is a security thing. Every executive in a company, everybody who manages people needs this. So here's how we did it. First, Lisa signed up. You submit some basic personal information. Obviously, you have to do that so they know what to search for. Delete Me experts will find and remove your personal information, and they do this with what is now hundreds of data brokers, and that number goes up every single day. They'll help reduce your online footprint. They'll help keep you, your family, your business safe. Once the removal process starts, you're going to get a detailed Delete Me report within 7 days, but it doesn't stop there, and this is why you need Delete Me. They'll continue to scan and remove personal information regularly, and they do automated removal opt-out monitoring. So now, because of GDPR, the California Privacy Act, and other reasons, companies do have to have a page somewhere that says remove this information. But they're not dumb. They do it. And then, magically it repopulates over the next few days, weeks, and months. So Delete Me automatically ensures records do not get repopulated after being removed. This is why you need it. We're talking names, addresses, photos, emails, relatives, phone numbers, social media, property value, and on and on and on. And the data broker industry is not shrinking. It's only evolving and getting bigger. Delete Me continues to add new sites, new features to ensure their service is easy for you to use and effective in removing personally identifiable information. Privacy exposures and incidents affect individuals differently. You may have a different threat model than, let's say, Lisa does as the CEO of a company. That's why Delete Me's privacy advisors are there to ensure that all their customers have the information and support they need when they need it. Protect yourself. Reclaim your privacy. Go to joindeleteme.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT. joindeleteme.com/twit. The offer code is TWIT. And you'll get 20% off when you do that. That helps us too, by the way. joindeleteme.com/twit. Offer code is TWIT. And I'll tell you, I'll read you the story that makes me think we need this more than ever. This, David, you put this in from 404media.co, which is a company we know well and love. Some of their reporters are great. Cox Media Group, you know the name Cox, big cable provider, ISP, marketing company, is now telling their customers, the marketers, that they can target potential clients thanks to their active monitoring of voice devices.
Jesus.
I'll read the lead. A marketing team within media giants Cox Media Group claims it has the capability to listen to ambient conversations of consumers through embedded microphones in smartphones, smart TVs, and other devices to gather data and to use that data to target ads. This is in their marketing material. And from a pitch they gave to outside marketing professionals. They call it active listening. They claim the company...
Which is what you should do. You learn this in therapy.
Right.
Active
I'm listening very intently.
So we should want this, right?
Yeah. Well, marketers want it. We know they want it. They want to know everything about you, right?
Yeah.
Can they do it? David, what do you think? Is this them blowing smoke? Hoping.
Well, no. Well, first of all, turning on your microphone, it's debatable whether you can or can't do it. And I believe both Android and Apple are claiming, they're not going to enable this. But at the same time, I'm sure everyone has had this experience where you had a conversation with someone and all of a sudden you're seeing ads for that thing that you just had a conversation, and you immediately assume, is my phone listening to me? Of which I know the Reply All podcast delved into this, and they claimed it's not. Usually what happens, and again, it may be happening, it may not, it's still up in the air, but usually what happens is, say you and I are friends on Facebook, and you start looking up the thing that we were talking about, then all of a sudden I may see it as well. So that may be the reason. But yes, marketers would love something like this. But yes, it is flies in the face of people's concerns of privacy. I should also mention people's concerns of privacy are fairly new. I remember 13 years ago, I heard Eric Schmidt speak at an event at I think it was the Four Seasons up in Lake Tahoe. And he said to a group of tech professionals, with great pride, he said, we can predict at a high rate where you are going to go next. And nobody screamed, hey, huge privacy concern. It was more like, hey, that's pretty darn cool. Yeah. It is only recently we're getting very, very concerned about privacy. And I believe that, the European regulation, GDPR, is really what brought it to the forefront, because after that, we now see more and more here in the United States. And also, Europeans are far more privacy conscious than we are here in the U.S.
All right, remember,
this
Cox
thing is huge.
Remember, Cox is a cable company. They offer phone service. They probably have cellular service. This came in to Steve Gibson. We talked about it on Security Now on Tuesday from a listener, Justin. He says, have you ever seen something like this? His cell carrier, which turns out to be Xfinity, is asking him to accept a root certificate on his phone and give it full trust.
What?
Now, obviously, Brianna, you know what the implication of that is. That puts a man in the middle on everything going on your smartphone.
Jeez.
Now, I don't have Xfinity cell phone service. Is this something that they do to every customer? Because if they
By the way,
do,
this is not the first example of this. There's many other examples of this as well. Exactly what you're describing, Brianna.
I'm just shocked. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, look, the answer to all of this is, look, I work in advertising, or at least I work with, as far as political advertising, I have conversations every single day with people about the data we want to collect, who we want to target, ways to do it, ways to reach them out there. Because cable TV is not working, so we've got to figure out how to micro-target with more people and specificity on the internet. So I see every day how broken this field is. And I feel like a broken record on this show, Leo, believing there's going to be some moment where the lights are going to come on from the sky and people are going to understand that they shouldn't do this because it's wrong. That's not going to happen. And the ways this is probably getting targeted is through these bottom of the barrel smartphone games or apps that have crappy permissions on Android, and they ask you to give wide access to your phone, and people probably say yes and they shouldn't, and get access to all your information that way. I have no doubt that's what they're talking about here. And the only way forward is regulation. I'm sorry. I know no one in the tech industry wants to hear that, but there is just, show me a pragmatic way to get this garbage from threatening our privacy, because it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse if we don't do something.
Nate, you're in the UK, which has a very interesting attitude about this. The EU, of course, wants to protect consumers. The UK government has a very aggressive plans to spy on everything you do, right? The Snoopers Charter, and they want to break encryption.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're not fans of end-to-end encryption because they believe that it enables predators and other illegal actors to do what they do. But they so far have not managed to make any actual encryption be broken because everyone is against it. So that's not happened. They do also like to spy, but they've done that for a long time. The controversial thing recently was, how do you prove that you are how do you prove that you are over 18 or over whatever legal age you need to be to access something? How about using AI to determine your age through a webcam or through a smartphone? Like that's the current thing we talked about on the podcast the other week, actually.
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. You don't need me to explain the reasons why that's such a terrible idea, but these are some of the suggestions that are made. And a lot of the time they do come from a position of generally, good intentions, protect kids, stop terrorism. But the reality is that you generally make things worse by cracking down on things that are actually predominantly used by good people for legitimate purposes. But in terms of the snooping and the advertising, I mean, for a long time, we've kind of felt like devices are spying on us. I think the regulation has a huge part to play, but I actually think that, not to sound like an Apple apologist or a fanboy, but one of the best things about Apple these days is Apple doesn't really need your data. It's evil in its own way. It wants you to buy, spend $1,000 on a phone every year and iPads and stuff, but it doesn't need your data in the same way that Google and others.
This is a very key point right there. Yes.
Yeah. And so I sort of
first-party data is what we're talking about versus third-party data.
The fact that Google operates, their revenue model is based on behavioral data. Apple's revenue model is not based on behavioral data.
Increasingly, though, Apple is doing advertising and is collecting behavioral data as a first party.
But they very much market. They sell that they are the privacy conscious.
I think they
business.
speak out of both sides of their mouth. I think they say that because it's good for business. But at the same time, if you're selling advertising, you're collecting ad data, right?
But
and that gets to a bigger issue. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
I was just to finish the point then, is that you can separate advertising. You can advertise effectively without compromising privacy. That is absolutely possible. And I think there is a big difference between selling something based on search terms and things and actively listening through a microphone to your device because you have allowed an app.
That is the extreme level. But I should tell you, Nate, go to the Dreamforce conference. This is Salesforce's conference. And literally every session is about how do I collect more about people, know more about people, target more against people. There is, and I mean, there's like 1,000 sessions at this conference. It's enormous. There is nothing about protecting people's privacy. And I mean nothing.
Well, it is Salesforce, let's be honest.
No, but I'm just saying, but think about this, Leo, for a second. Is the people responsible for collecting this information have zero incentive to protect your privacy. It is their incentive to collect as much as possible so they can be more efficient about the job that they're doing. And it makes sense.
And I hate to be... Go ahead.
Okay. No, I feel like I have to say, it's not like you're doing this for malicious reasons, right? Like,
no, they're just doing their job.
What I was going to say is, for my particular job, it's like I'm working on a project right now in Ohio. Right. So if I want to go figure out people who are not registered to vote, how do you figure out the inverse of the voter file? Right. Traditionally, the main data source that my party uses for this kind of stuff is literally going down to the circuit clerk's office, and every single Democrats have gone to every circuit clerk's office in the country, and they've gotten that voter file information. They know, what your address is, what party you're registered for, what elections you voted for. How do I get an inverse of that file to figure out who is not registered to vote, and then go, who would be someone who probably cares about these issues that we should try to get to register to vote? The traditional way is like going and sitting outside of a supermarket and pray you run into the right person. That's obviously crazy, right? So there are, it's not like you're sitting here going, I want to listen in on people and steal their information. Like, you're trying to figure out how to get messages to people. So there's just not going to be a moment where they're going to want anything less to do that job with, if that makes sense.
I mean, look, you're not selling soap, but it's the same stuff. You're selling something and you're getting the same kind of information. And it's very clear the people selling soap also want that information. I have to tell you, and this is kind of petty of me, but that's killing podcasting, because true podcasting, RSS-based podcasting, doesn't have any of that information about its audience. And advertisers are fleeing from podcasting, just as they've fled magazines and newspapers. and they're fleeing network television because they can buy advertising that tells them exactly who's seeing it, when they saw it, for how long they saw it, who they are, what their demographics are. And advertisers want that information. Now, I think there's a lot of evidence, by the way, at least for advertising, not in politics. I think there's evidence to the contrary in politics, but for advertising, that it's not a very useful tool. But go ahead and try to tell advertisers that. They want that information, and they're going to get that information. It makes it very hard for us to sell ads. They'll say, well, can you advertise to males in California? No, we don't have that information. That's not how it works. Spotify has that information. That's why Spotify exclusives cost, the advertising those podcasts cost Joe Rogan's $1 million a minute because he knows exactly who's watching and listening. So this is very
our
much...
advertisers, by the way, they expect this. They assume that I'm going to get the names and email addresses of all the people.
You don't do that, right? Because you could.
I don't know. How the heck do I know?
How would I know that?
Listen to my podcast.
You're talking to CISOs who are just like our audience, very sensitive to that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, by the way, it's one of the reasons we had layoffs last week, and it's one of the reasons that we've canceled shows this week because the revenue is down dramatically. Advertisers are fleeing to the tune of $8 billion a quarter to YouTube, to places where they can get that kind of information. And so the model I built TWiT on 15 years ago is collapsing. That's why we push Club TWiT so hard.
Well, I think, by the way, digital advertising was selling getting more information than what Nielsen was telling you, prior.
Right. So what's killed TV.
Matter.
Yeah, TV, you know what? There's a definite trend of advertisers moving to Google, Facebook, YouTube, places where they get that kind of information. And away from broadcast television, which even broadcast television knows more about you than we do. And by the way, why do you think so many TVs come with cameras built in nowadays? It's not so you can zoom from your TV.
I've seen it where there are ads built into the TV sets themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Like a separate screen or
try to turn that off on I don't know how it is in England, but here in the United States, you cannot buy a non-smart TV because they're putting ads on the screen. They're using cameras to watch who's watching.
Just don't connect it to to the internet. That's the first thing I tell people.
I agree.
I don't.
I agree. Then you'll get old ads that are not targeted, but you'll still get ads.
Thing is, ads are useful. Like, I'm not anti-ad or anti-advertiser.
We wouldn't exist without ads. Yeah.
It's the world works, and it's about like effective ads that aren't creepy, that don't exploit you. Like, that's all we need.
I agree.
And it's difficult. But that's basically all it is.
And I think what's happening, unfortunately, we had this notion that the internet was free for the last 20 years, and Gmail's free. It's free. Look at all the great free stuff I get through the internet. It was never free, and that model could not exist. It costs them a lot of money to provide Gmail. They have to show you ads.
the classic line, Leo. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Right, and it's absolutely the truth. So ad-supported media is where I come from. I was in radio and TV for years, and I've been doing podcasts for 18 years. But honestly, the entire economic model of the internet is collapsing as we speak. And there's only two ways to pay for its stuff, is to either charge people, and people are subscription shy by this time, death by 1,000 subscriptions, or to somehow target you and get ads to you that advertisers will buy. And those are the incentives. So if you want to read a blog, if you want to listen to a podcast, if you want to watch a stream, all of that has to be paid for. And it's either you pay for it or the advertiser pays for it.
I was really interested that, just really, really quickly, I was really interested that Apple started doing this, it's this new subscription payment where it's contingent on you having a subscription to something else. Like if you subscribe to another app, you can give people a discount to subscribe to yours.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I think maybe Google does this as well. I don't know, but it's an interesting idea because you don't have to be a subscriber to your company's app to offer the discount. Like you could say, well, if you're subscribed to such and such from this other company, then you can have a discount for this subscription because maybe they work well together. And it helps bolster the subscriptions of both to think, well, if you're keeping both of these subscriptions alive, then that's good for everyone. And I thought that's a really interesting idea. And how could that be applied in the wider world? And we do see that from the same companies, but not necessarily from different companies. And it comes down to data and who knows what else you're subscribing to.
That
comes
idea.
with its own questions.
David, if people pay for our podcast and we give them a discount on your podcast, could you do the same to your podcast or your listeners on our podcast? That would be the same thing as Nate's talking about, right?
We do that, but I don't charge anybody for my podcast. So.
We have pushed the club like crazy now because that's the only way we're going to survive, frankly.
But it's interesting you mentioned that, Leo, because
actually,
years ago.
Go
ahead, jump in.
No, go ahead.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Brianna, just pin it in there. Go ahead, David.
Okay.
No, David, then you. David, then Brianna.
Okay, I'll be very quick. Years ago, I wrote an article about making money from podcasting. And the bottom line is, and I'm sure you're going to confirm on this, there is no one stream. No, there's no one stream. Don't rely on any one stream. Yeah. You create a mixture thing. It could be merchandising. It could be getting sponsors. It could be paying for premium services, of which you're doing all of those things. Yeah. And there's lots more too as well. We are pretty much all supported by sponsors, but we do live events and we have other, other kind of live-based things as well that have become popular, but we're mostly sponsor-based. But again, you have to look for multiple models and you have to evolve too. Yeah. If the market changes, you got to evolve.
Brianna.
The show's moved on. Let's just keep going. I would be returning to something like 3
Return. I don't care.
No.
All right.
So, okay. I was going to say, this is coming back 3 points ago, but Leo, you were talking about basically criticizing the way that advertising has gone. And I agree with you. It's certainly different today than it was in the 90s. I think how can I say this? I understand what you're saying there, but I also think it's true that the kinds of products that can get advertised today are fundamentally different than the things that had advertising budgets back in the 90s. Remember what this was like. It was major corporations. It was really big things. Small shops with these kinds of startup products, they didn't have access to, say, television or the newspaper, national newspapers in the exact same way. This is actually a relatively new thing, right? Do you remember when Facebook advertising came along? It was really unique that a small shop could go out there, a local business could target people locally. This is a relatively new invention in advertising. So I hear what you're saying about being frustrating that the model has changed, but I also think fundamentally the kinds of people that are advertising are changed. We had one of our recent sponsors on Rocket is a small company doing a buckwheat pillow, right? That's for people with a very special sleeping preference, right? So I don't know. I think that the expectations are going, and I don't mean to minimize the effect it's had on TWiT, but I think that it's not done out of malice. I think there's.
I'm not calling it malice. It's capitalism. It's it's the free market. It's the invisible hand. That's how they make more money. Now, it's interesting because you're doing political campaign spending, political ad spending, and historically, and in our jurisprudence, we have separated commercial advertising and political advertising. And so, there's different rules and different regulations. And I think we kind of recognize that, at least the court has recognized that political advertising is free speech, as part of speech. But I got to point out, did you see that in the 2022 federal election, spending for advertising was $8.9 billion?
Yeah. It's crazy.
$8.9 billion compared to about $3.5 billion in 2002, 20 years ago.
Yeah. This is going to be a hugely expensive election. And so much of my job.
Yeah, this was midterms. What about 2024? Oh, my God.
Dude, this is so crazy because right now there's this war going on in the Democratic Party. I'm not trying to blast my friends that work in television advertising, but there is a corrupt class of of advisors and consultants that make millions every single cycle because they advise ads for television, right? And yeah,
would you
we just know it's
support
having less and
getting
less
money
savings.
out of politics? Would you support?
Oh, of course I would. Of course I would.
I think it perverts it.
Most of what I do, it's like it feels so dirty to use these tools, but I can't change the system through unilateral disarmament. Right? Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
Say, oh, we're not going to do that and lose every election. That's not going to work.
No,
I understand
you have to completely regulate how data is used in politics. It's fundamentally broken. The advertising is broken. The FEC, we follow it. Every single step of it needs to be completely rethought, a lot of these regulations.
Well, and a lot of this goes back to Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision that said corporations are people too and have unlimited spending capability. And that, I mean, this $8.9 billion doesn't come from you and me. This is from business corporations who are trying to change regulations in their favor.
It's kind of off topic, but if you really get into Citizens United, it is opening up some more interesting questions like what does a PAC do that classifies as free speech? What is a media company? So I feel like this is one of these things, if you know a lot about it, people can get it wrong, but directionally people are correct to be really angry about unlimited money in politics.
Yeah, and you have to, I understand completely. You've got to do it because that's the way the game is played. And until the rules are changed, that's how you're going to have to do it. I completely understand
100%,
that. But
100%.
It seems pretty clear that, of course, it's never going to happen because the people who benefit from all this spending are the ones who would have to change the laws. So the laws are never going to change.
Just one super bright note, though, Leo. I was talking to Lisa earlier today, and one of your video people, I think I'm probably going to have a job for her. So fingers crossed on that.
That would be nice. Good. Thank you for hiring the people that we had to let go just because, we don't want to do layoffs. It's the last thing I want to do.
Of course not.
We're shrinking.
Of course not.
Because ad dollars are shrinking. And the club is growing, but it's not growing as fast as we'd like it to grow. Public broadcasting gets about 10% of its audience to become members. We are just about 1.2% of our audience. And this is, here's my plug for Club TWiT. If you're not in Club TWiT, I honestly, because of this AI thing we were talking about, I feel like the next 10 years are going to be a big, big deal and that you need good journalism to cover what is about to happen in technology. That's always been our mission. Our mission's been a little less important when it was just what's the new iPhone all about. But I think it's about to become extremely important. The mission is to educate you about what is happening in technology so that you can make informed decisions about your life and about the world. And I think you're going to need that. And I think we want to keep doing it. And the only way that's going to happen is if you join the club. So the 99% of you who listen but don't join the club, please consider this. I understand it's $7 a month is not everybody can afford it, but if you can, you get ad-free shows, which means no tracking, no ads. You don't need to because you're paying. We can completely take that out of the equation. We do have a lot of extra content. iOS Today is moving into the club. We have an Untitled Linux show replacing Floss Weekly in the club. There's a lot of great stuff in the club. And of course, the great Club TWiT Discord, which is a great community. And I think all of that for $7 is a pretty good deal. That is extremely important. And I think it is important to you because I think you're going to need to know what's happening in the next few years of the world around us, not just for your job, but really life in general. twit.tv/club TWiT. Okay, I put in a little plug. Just a little plug.
Can I ask you a quick question at Club TWiT? Have people been hired and through Club TWiT and hired people?
Absolutely. I mean, the club is valuable for so many reasons, I think. But certainly the connections, the people you meet in the club, those are important. And I think, absolutely, people have gotten jobs through Club TWiT. I'm not saying join Club TWiT to get a job, but I think also you could make the claim, David, that the information people get from our shows helps them in their work, helps them get a better job too. This information is extremely important.
All success in the work that we do boils down to is the content or even the sponsors helping people do their job better.
Yeah.
And all of it boils down to that.
Really, and you, I would agree, I'm sure agree with this too, is that what podcasting is community. Ultimately, that's the only thing podcasting offers is a community. And we have a good community. I want to keep that community going. That community is of value to our listeners, not just the shows, but the community around the shows. By the way,
give a tip to your sponsors. Hold on, can I give a tip to your sponsors?
Sure.
The better that you can connect with the TWiT community. No, the better you can connect with that community. I say about our community as well. But the better you can connect, the better you will succeed.
I agree.
If you try to just send disconnected messaging that does not connect with the community, you're not going to succeed. But the fact that you do live show reads, that does everything.
Oh, and we turn down a lot of advertisers for that very reason, you know. If an advertiser comes to us to sell women's underwear, we're going to say, well, we're 98% men, and I don't think we're going to do very well for you. On the other hand,
there might still be demand there.
Might still be, because guys can buy underwear for their women. And okay, anyway. But no, we actually turned down.
Where were you taking that, Leo?
There's nowhere to go. I shouldn't have even brought it up. We have turned down, though, e-cigs. We've turned down crypto. There's a lot of stuff we won't do. Because we don't think it connects with our audience or it's good for our audience. We don't want to do that.
We turned down a sponsor because my co-host did not like their marketing practices.
Well, we do that all the time. Yeah.
But they were in cyber.
Yeah, no, we do that all the time. There's a lot of companies we just say no to. If you hear us talking about a company, it's because we either use it or we know about it, and we really it is, in fact, a genuine endorsement. And I think that's part of our model. It has to be, right? Mm-hmm. That's the community thing. I'm not going to tell you about something I don't believe in. I'll give you an example. Our sponsor for this segment, Mint Mobile. I love this company. And Lisa and I have been going through bills and trying to cut expenses. And it's really depressing when you look at your cell bill, how it's creeped up. 60, 70. They say, oh, it's $70, everything all in. 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. More people, more features, more stuff. It always goes up. It never goes down. We've replaced so many of these $100 cell phone bills with $15 bills from Mint Mobile. And I have to tell you, the holidays are even better. Mint Mobile's best wireless deal of the year. Switch to Mint Mobile. Buy any 3-month plan. You'll get another 3 months for free. That's 6 months of premium wireless service for the price of 3. And you don't have, at Mint Mobile, one of the ways they save money is they don't have storage. You don't have to leave your house. You can activate it at home. They will send you a SIM for free, or eSIMs. Many new phones will support eSIMs, and you can just do it automatically. It can be done before the show's over, and you will save tons because phone plans start at $15 a month. I love Mint Mobile so much, I ended up just buying a year's plan. And the savings were phenomenal, and it's great service. It's based on, it's T-Mobile. They're a T-Mobile MVNO. Actually, I think they're soon going to be owned and operated by T-Mobile. So it's really good. It's the nation's best 5G service, and I will back that up. That's absolutely true. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, high-speed data on the nation's largest 5G network for $15 a month. Mint Mobile. They even sell devices. I got an iPhone SE for $15 a month from them, which was great. So all in, I was $30 a month for the phone and the plan. It was incredible. Switch to Mint Mobile. Get your first 3 months of premium wireless service, just $15 a month. They have unlimited plans. But what I would really do is look at how much data you use every month. Because the 5 gig plan, by the way, that's one thing. Mint Mobile's price has not gone up with inflation, just their data. So it used to be a 4 gig plan. Now it's a 5 gig plan. I love Mint Mobile. For a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan. Get 3 more months free by going to mintmobile.com/twit. We have moved many family members who we were paying for to Mint Mobile, mintmobile.com/twit. Now, this deal is for new customers only. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. But the best thing to do is see Mint Mobile for details. mintmobile.com/twit. Big fan. Big fan. All right. By the way, here's some good news. We were talking about privacy. One of the things that law enforcement has done historically with Google is go to them with a warrant. Actually, they usually don't even need a warrant, and say, can you tell us everybody who was near this vicinity for the last 48 hours? These geographic warrants, Google doesn't want to do it, but can't stop it. They are now updating maps to prevent authorities from accessing location history. I think Google and Apple both kind of want to get out of the business of geofence warrants. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say this is asymmetrical for the people doing it because the government can get all this data, and it's very hard for an individual to do the inverse, to get all this data and prove that they're innocent.
That they weren't there.
Kind of
FBI used a geofence warrant, for instance, to collect information about a Black Lives Matter protest in Seattle. And they just basically got everybody who was at the protest. They got the names, addresses, and phone numbers of everybody. We've seen this before, a bank robbery. They get everybody who's in the area. I think that really is abridging your rights, to be honest.
Because, the potential then is that it's implicating you without you actually having done anything wrong in the first place.
It's a fishing expedition, exactly.
Yeah. Because you used to be able to, well, I'm sure you still can do this, but by triangulating the cell signal, but you can't do it as accurately and you can't do it en masse like this. And you have to do it pretty much in real time, to a certain degree, at least. You know,
somebody who's not doing this is the carriers who have for years had a law enforcement portal for pen registers that they can, this is stuff they don't have to have a warrant for. They just need $1.50 and they could say, hey, where was Leo the night of the 15th? And it's just online because all that stuff's being collected all the time about you. So this is something Google says will help with geofence warrants. They're also changing by default the auto-delete settings. It was 18 months on your location data. It's now going to be 3 months by default, it's just great. Now, I happen to like having I like the app which shows me going to work and coming home, going to work and coming home and all that stuff. But if you don't want to, it deletes automatically in 3 months. You don't have to remember it. Democrats sent a letter to Sundar Pichai last year calling on the company to, quote, stop unnecessarily collecting and retaining customer location data. Apparently, Google had received, get this, in 2020, 11,554 geofence warrants. That's more than that's 1,000 a month from, police jurisdictions all over the country.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that doesn't actually sound like a lot to me.
Well, you're in England.
No. But even thinking about the US, like that, I just think if you were chancing it and you were trying as a you think you might get something back, so you quickly file the request because there'll be a procedure in order to make it as easy and quick as possible for everyone because there's loads of them. Then if you just try your hand and just say, well, maybe we'll get something back. Like, I have no knowledge about this. I'm a total novice when it comes to how this stuff works, but I would have thought that would have been more. I mean, look at the number of takedown requests that you get through the DMCA and things like.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
I know it's a very different. It's a very different thing, but I think a lot of the time they just chance it.
I think I have some good news on this. I think I have reason to be really happy. So no matter what happens after 2024, there's going to be a new chapter for American politics, right? Particularly in my party, kind of the end of the Obama era is going to end with this election one way or another. And there's going to be new leadership in the Democratic Party. And what I am seeing with everyone that's on the teams, this kind of power is coalescing, is I think there's an effort out there to figure out what are the broad messages that we need to be running on. And privacy is actually in every single one of the high-level meetings I've been in. It's really towards the top of that list. And think about it. This is one of these things that has really broad bipartisan support. It's kind of outside this dead-end culture war stuff that we end up in all the time. It's a really, really good issue to run on, because if you're talking to moms, they're out there worried about their kids being tracked, and they see firsthand the damage that Instagram is doing to their girls, things like that. And Democrats see this for a different reason. So I actually think that as this next chapter of American politics is being written, I do think you're going to hear more and more about this. I am shocked all the time when I'm out there talking to Republicans, their political professionals, and even Republican Congress people, that they are concerned about this too. So I do think we're going to see bipartisan action on this eventually.
God bless Ron Wyden. Our favorite senator, who is probably the most technologically sophisticated senator. He wrote last week a letter, a couple of weeks ago, a letter to the Department of Justice complaining about the fact that both Apple and Google with the iOS and Android platforms were giving law enforcement and governments information on push notifications.
Ooh.
This, Wyden says, gives the two companies unique insight into the traffic flowing from apps on their phones to the users, and in turn puts them in, quote, a unique position to facilitate government surveillance of how users are using particular apps. He asked the DOJ to repeal or modify any policies that hindered public discussions of push notification spying. Part of the reason he said that is because Apple has said, in this case, the federal government prohibited us from telling you that they were monitoring your push notifications. Now that this method has become public, we're updating our transparency reporting to detail those kinds of requests. A week later, Apple added a passage to its law enforcement guidelines saying you have to have at least a subpoena or better to get this. They've updated their warrant requirements, which is a good thing. I guess they didn't have a warrant requirement before.
This seems smart, and I kind of feel that looking ahead to 2024, I feel it will be the year of the push notification crackdown. Just over the last couple of weeks, you look at what's been happening with Beeper Mini, with the whole iOS versus Android, cat and mouse game that they're playing. You look at something like this in very close proximity, and the technology behind a push notification really hasn't changed that much since they began to be introduced, 10 years ago. I feel like a lot's going to have to change with those in order to, A, make them more privacy focused, because right now they very much are not, but also to just make them better. And I really think that next year we'll see a lot change with these. It might not look like they've changed a lot to the end user, but I think behind the scenes, a lot's going to have to change.
It's funny. We've talked before on Security Now about metadata. People worry about the contents of their messages, the contents of their communications, but so much can be gleaned from metadata, who you're talking to, or push notifications. When that phone is dinging, it can tell them so much. So
where your mouse is on the screen and how long it lingers.
Wow. Well, don't look at my mouse, baby.
There's a show title.
Never look a gift mouse in the horse. No, that's wrong. Google, by the way, speaking of Google, lost a big court case this week. The jury, remember, Epic sued Apple and lost in a judge's decision last year. Google this week lost in a jury trial. Epic said Google has stifled competition for its App Store on Android devices. The jury agreed, deliberating for a mere 3 hours. It's now going to be up to the judge on what remedies Google will have to pursue. Of course, Google is immediately appealing, so maybe the judge won't have to do anything at all. Wilson White, a Google vice president, although if his name was Walter White, it'd be so much better, says, I am the one who knocks. No. Says, we plan to challenge the verdict. We will continue to defend the Android business model and remain deeply committed to our users, partners, and the broader Android ecosystem. Say my name. No, that's not there either.
Isn't it funny how Apple won and Google lost? Apple had a judge, Google had a jury. The jury said, no, this sucks. It's unanimous. And the judge said, nah, it's basically fine.
Yeah, isn't that it? Do you think that's the difference? Google. One other thing Tim Sweeney of Epic said is that Google tended to write things down. Apple did not.
Well, that just makes the case easier to argue, but the evidence, I don't know, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence still. I think it's really interesting that it's different. One's going to appeal, Epic's going to appeal against the first one. I think it probably already has.
Epic and Apple are both in the Supreme Court, appealing to the Supreme Court over the very minor loss Apple suffered over the App Store with the Epic case. Epic wants more, obviously. And I imagine Google will take this all the way to the Supreme Court if they have to. And
with my Bloomberg hat on, if you looked at the Google stock when this all came out, it barely moved. It was down the tiniest little bit, and the rest of the market was up. It basically means investors aren't worried.
Yeah.
Because either they don't think it'll mean anything, or it'll take so long that they don't need to make any meaningful change to their investment right now. But you sometimes see this where a company loses and, the stock goes right up or it goes right down. Whereas with Google, you don't need to move much for it to represent a huge financial loss. 1% is enough to represent a pretty significant loss of investment, but it barely moved. So there's a lot to look at here. And I think investors are pretty not moved by this.
It's certainly, if they appeal, it would go years and it won't have an impact on the App Store. I think the EU is more likely to have an impact on the App Store. And that may be the other reason it has moved, is that investors understand that the EU is going to make both Google and Apple open their App Stores anyway. So it doesn't really matter what happens in court, right? Apple apparently has plans already. They've already put in place a system, if they have to open to other app stores. Apple, if you ask me, is far more culpable in this than Google. Google does allow you to sideload. There's a setting. So you don't have to use the Google Store. And then,
but this was part of the arguments about, like in the case of Epic Games recently.
They said it was too hard, right?
Too hard. So you don't need to actually technically have a monopoly. You just need to make it difficult for people to essentially sell their products in other areas, and that's what they won in this case. So, if you add just honestly a single extra step of complication, that can just end you. I mean, think about Google search results. Whoever looks at page 2, no one.
Yeah. It's why I don't feel there'd be a problem if you were to allow third-party payment providers into the App Store, because if you're already locked into Apple and it already has all your money and it's already secure and it's using the biometric authentication, it's always going to be faster and easier. If the price is the same, you're just going to choose whatever's fastest, and that's probably going to be Apple's. So I think they're worried.
I think this shows that some things should not be decided by juries, or at least I think it shows the limitations of the jury system in the United States. My husband works in patent law, and a while back he was advising on tremendously complicated biotech case that had to do with patent infringement and delivery systems, right? And the lawsuit was 100% about chemistry, and you really did have to understand a PhD to in biomolecular chemistry to understand this case. And, being married to him, I got to understand this. It was really clear to me the jury just got it wrong because they didn't understand it. And I think in the same way, to understand what's going on with the App Store and the differences in Google and these antitrust arguments, they're really, 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 really complicated. I mean, even for those of us here in tech, to really drill down and understand the law here and every single one of the facts and the way antitrust can be applied here, it just, it's completely not surprising to me that you have two companies, one of them, in my view, clearly more in the wrong, and one of them gets the judgment against them. And of course, it's going to go to a federal appeals court, which will, have a panel of judges looking at this and making a call. I really suspect in this case, if they'd gone to arbitration in some way, everyone would have gotten a more accurate judgment. And I think it's limited for that reason.
I also wonder if Apple and Google had not tried so hard to win outright, if they had just said to Tim Sweeney, look, Tim wants an Epic store on the iPhone and Android. If they had said, no, look, Tim, you can't do that, but you know what? We're going to let you use Apple's store and Google Play Store and not charge you 30%. We're gonna let you get all the way. That would have been a compromise that didn't compromise security, did not compromise safety. Because it may not have given Sweeney everything he wanted, Epic everything they wanted, but he might have settled for that, and that would have gotten around the whole thing. I know Apple's iPhone is not improved by having a variety of other stores on there. That's just a security nightmare. Just give them the money, for Christ's sake. That's all they want, right?
Yeah.
Just let them keep their money. Have you been watching the saga of Beeper Mini?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the guy who founded Pebble founded a company called Beeper a couple of years ago, and their first product, which they offered kind of in beta by invite only, and I think they're public now. Beeper was a cloud-based service. They were running, we think for a long time, Mac Minis in the cloud that you would then log into with your Mac Apple credentials, and then it would connect to your Android phone so that you could use Apple's messages on Android. It wasn't actually Apple's messages, but at least you'd be a blue bubble. I recommend it. I'm sure you did as well, David, that nobody give their Apple credentials to any third party ever. That's a bad idea. But then they found a high school kid who was apparently quite a genius who had reverse engineered Apple's messages protocol, actually reverse engineered the authentication protocol, and was able to, and it was on GitHub, it's a Python script, proof of concept, they were able to kind of weaponize it and allow you on an Android phone to log into an Apple account, your Apple account, not anybody else's, log into your Apple account and send and receive messages from your Android phone that looked to Apple and the iPhone just like you were using an iPhone. In fact, when I set it up, I got a notification on my Mac saying another Mac has joined or another iPhone has joined your network. Is that okay? I said, well, that's a good sign. So it's been a cat and mouse hunt ever since. Apple, 3 days later, blocked the service. Earlier this week, the service figured out an end around and went back online. And I got another message. An iPhone has joined your network. And then now it sends sometimes. It doesn't receive all the time. It's very off and on. Apple says this is a security hole. Nobody should be allowed to do this, and we're going to block it every time we can. The folks at Beeper say, well, they can't block it completely without breaking their own authentication system. Any thoughts about this?
I think as iOS...
do any of you use Android? No. You're all...
I use Android.
But, I mean, are you an iPhone, primarily iPhone?
No, I'm fully. No, I don't use any Apple products at all.
No Apple products for David, but Nate and Brianna and I use iPhones, so we don't share your blue bubble misery. Brianna, do you look down on blue bubbles?
I try to accept all people. I try to accept Android people.
It's
I'm
not
tolerant.
easy being blue.
It's very difficult. No, I was going to say, one of the things that's really striking is I busted out my iMac Pro for the first time in a while to crunch some videos I'm on, and it's like several versions behind, and it was just astonishing to me how many things have broken, like trying to authenticate in the years since I've turned it on. Like messaging systems broken. I spent 2 hours just updating it. And I think one thing we've really just, like a frog in a boiling pot, we've just become numb to is how much like Mac OS has become like what we used to criticize Windows for, just being layers on top of layers and questions and setup and do this password and log your 10 things in here. I mean, it is really a pain in the butt to set up an iPhone or a Mac nowadays.
Yeah.
It is so it is completely unsurprising to me as Apple has gone, well, it'd be cool. We can add this new system to this. We can add this new thing here, that there are vulnerabilities in here and they haven't thought through the basics like their authentication system. So probably inevitable. We're probably going to see more of this. And you have no one to blame but yourselves.
This is a really interesting argument to watch from over here because I barely know anyone who uses iMessage. Even on
everybody
on
uses
iOS.
What? WhatsApp?
WhatsApp and Signal in Europe, a tiny bit of Telegram, and then your WeChats and Kakao and all that stuff in Asia. Like anytime I send somebody an iMessage, it's rare. Like most people don't even have it on their home screens. So it's been really interesting to see how it plays out because it feels like a US issue, but because it's Apple, it has to take a global stance. It's been really interesting.
Are you rooting for
very
David or
little-
Goliath? Do you have a dog in this hunt?
I don't really care. As long as it's interesting, I'm going to read about it and write about it. Like, I don't take sides. They're all great. They're all evil.
Typical
Do whatever.
Typical tech journalist. I don't care
Pretty
as long
much.
as it's interesting.
That's a dodge. That's a dodge.
It is a dodge.
don't
I'll tell you what I would
respect
like.
that take.
Okay, all right. I will. All right, I won't dodge. I will say that I don't care professionally, but personally, I think it would be very interesting if Apple released an iMessage app for Android. I don't think it would help iMessage. I still think they'd have an uphill struggle getting people to want to use it. But I do think they should do it. And I think that adopting RCS, which they've said they're going to do, is more a way of fending off EU regulation than it is about making something better for their customers. But I think Apple's missed a trick by not offering iMessage to Android.
And I would also add that I think you'd be making a huge mistake to use Beeper or any other solution like this.
Yep.
Apple's going to punish you. They're punishing Beeper right now.
And they don't like push notifications, and it's why I think this issue will be a big deal next year. But I also think on the Android stuff, look at what happened when Apple released iTunes for Windows. And allowed iPods to be supported by Windows. I'm not a huge fan of saying, well, look at what happened 20 years ago and let's assume the same will happen. But I'm pretty sure that would have happened for iMessage if they'd have done it back in the day when they could have. I think the boat sailed.
I know that if you're an Apple aficionado, this really separates the Apple fans from the rest of the world. The Apple fans are saying, screw those Android people. They should be blue bubbles. Apple is right in every respect and is just protecting the integrity of their operation. Plus, no one should be able to reverse engineer their protocol and charge $2 a month for it. By the way, Beeper is announced because their service is so up and down, they're not going to charge anybody until they can figure it out. I think Beeper is not long for this world. I think Apple is about ready to crush them. I think, honestly, the truth about Beeper was because it couldn't be your default messaging app on Android because it doesn't send SMS. It's no different than just having WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram on your system. It's just another messaging app, so you can solve the whole problem if you just get your Apple friends to use WhatsApp, and that solves the whole thing. I
feel like I need to defend the honor of Apple people just briefly here, Leo. I don't think we sit around going, whoa, we're so much better than you because we paid too much for the same phone we bought.
Oh, you don't read Reddit, obviously. Just go to...
Okay, fair enough. I think that the reason I don't want an Android like iMessage app, with all respect to my friends that use Android, is because I don't even have faith they can keep iMessage safe, much less expand it to all these different phones. I just the hand to God. There is no reason for anyone to be in iOS at this point because it's such a complicated product, except for the security. And I don't think they're magical. I don't think they're vulnerable. I think iOS is pretty much just less attacked. But it's in my view, it is slightly better. So if they're going to F that up, I don't know what value iPhone has, genuinely.
David, do you feel bad being a blue bubble in this conversation?
Bubble here. This is how much I'm happy to be a blue bubble.
he turns his lights blue.
There we go.
You're the blue bubble. I think it's a tempest in a teapot. Who cares? Use Signal. You want to be secure? Use Signal. I wish
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I just wish I could get everybody to use the same thing. That's the real problem, is that we have no agreement on a messaging platform. And the only people who have any kind of agreement is Apple users because they all just use iMessage.
Well, certain countries, like I know Israel, everybody's on WhatsApp over there. Certain areas are heavy users of WhatsApp. I would love it if everyone went over to WhatsApp. Signal doesn't really work because I've found I used to try to message people who were not on Signal, which you can do, but it doesn't always get through. That's a problem.
There's no good solution, honestly. I don't want to use WhatsApp because it's Facebook. Nate, is everybody in the UK on WhatsApp? Is that where everybody is? Yeah.
But you know what? I was not on it for about 2.5 years. And I forced through emotional blackmail the people I loved most to move to Signal. And it worked for a lot of people, but it basically meant that they had Signal, and that was essentially how they talked to me.
Right.
And that did not make me feel good. But I sort of did it as a matter of principle to not use it. But I think Meta's done well to promote the privacy side of WhatsApp, and I decided that the trade-off for me, it was worth it to just not have to deal with the social problems of not being on WhatsApp.
Here's what I usually say to people who don't use like a private tool like a Signal, like a WhatsApp, because WhatsApp actually uses the same sort of tooling that Signal does. Is the classic case of we've all heard this before of, well, I don't have anything to hide. What does it matter? And the answer to that is not the issue. The issue is the attackers are using this information against you. And that's what you don't want. That's why your privacy matters.
I love it. The French prime minister required her ministers to abandon WhatsApp and Signal. This is France, of course, to use a French messaging program called Olvid, which as soon as I read the story, downloaded, and it's nice. It's got a lot of nice features. Well done. It's it's probably pretty secure. But then after she did that, critics pointed out that it's hosted on Amazon Web Services, which means all of those French messages are subject to American extraterritorial laws.
I mean, they could specify an instance, could they not, of AWS that's located in France?
I guess they could. It just shows you it's impossible, right? It's just impossible.
I'll tell you a very quick story about a dangerous guy using iMessage. A friend of mine who got her ex-husband's computer. He was using iMessage, did not realize that he had his computer set up to automatically save all of his iMessages to his computer. So from his phone, also computer. And she saw some very sensitive private information that he was sending via messaging.
So I have a super quick question, and y'all tell me if I'm cynical or whatever. So everyone, it seems like in tech, is always like Signal is the best. And like, I want to admit, I've not read deeply into the white paper on this, and I understand end-to-end encryption, but I also have been in software development enough to recognize that it's not just about the theory of your app. It's also about the size of the team you have to maintain it and like your funding, right?
This goes down to the bunker you're going to build, Brianna.
100%. So the scale and the size of the team with Signal, the thing that really made me go, is Signal really that secure? Is learning just how much of a shoestring budget they have to keep this running all around the world, and like how small like their server team is. I honestly have questions if a team that small with that few resources can scale something to like stop hostile nation states from like finding out ways to exploit it. I mean, is that crazy or is that not crazy?
It's not crazy. I think the story of Signal was that we all trusted Moxie Marlinspike, who created the protocol and an open source library, and which, by the way, is used by WhatsApp as well. And it was really a matter of personal trust for this guy. Now, he's left. He's no longer at Signal. It's run by Meredith Whitaker, who revealed this week, or actually it was last month, that Signal's server costs were $40 million a year, expected to rise to $50 million a year in a couple of years. Now, this is a nonprofit, charges no money for their product. That's entirely based on donations. I think you're exactly right, Brianna. How long can this go on? Maybe we shouldn't trust Signal anymore, I see no reason not to.
It'll go down fighting if it goes down at all, right?
Yeah.
She's great. She was one of the people who said, I'm moving out of England if the Snoopers Charter passes, and they actually had to negotiate with her.
I mean, Meta said the same thing. I think Apple said similar. Like, if they try and break the end-to-end encryption, they'll leave.
Signal uses
actually didn't the early days of WhatsApp charge like $1 for usage?
That was
It was
99 cents a year. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think initially you could just buy it once and that was it. And then they did like the yearly thing. And then
I think I spent the $1.
I did too.
I did.
I did too. But Meta now just folds that into their Signal uses 20 petabytes of data a year in bandwidth. 6 million goes to telecom firms to pay for the SMS interface, which is very important. And by the way, not encrypted, but it's really important for SMS, for Signal verification, as well as, I can use Signal as my default messenger on Android because it supports SMS.
Which makes you think, how much money could Signal save by disabling features that cost a lot but aren't used much, like file sharing? Because you can just share files in Signal.
There's
they
one
could
thing
save money.
We have learned, by the way, here at TWiT, the most expensive part of your operation is the people. Signal has 50 people, $19 million a year payroll. And that, that's one thing you can't really, mess with. It's a bigger team than they used to have. But when Signal started, it was 3 people working in a co-working space in San Francisco, including Moxie Marlinspike. That was not so long ago. All right, let me take a break because we do have to pay those electric bills. And we will have our final thoughts with our wonderful panel, Nate Lanxon, who is, I can't wait to watch your show, AI IRL. It's on Bloomberg Original Series, and he also is a tech editor at Bloomberg Europe. It's great to have you on, Nate, and your drum kit, which seems to be growing. I don't know, maybe it's my imagination.
I think some of the drums are giving birth to other ones.
They are. They're like my giant land snails. They don't even need other snails to reproduce. They can do it on their own.
Also, David Spark, my old friend from Tech TV, who is now the host and producer of CISO Series, CISO Series.com. If you're in security, you ought to listen to that for sure. Good to have you in your blue bubble. And Brianna Wu, whose new thing is progressive victory. Now I'm a progressive, so I'm going to presume progressive victory is about victory for progressives.
That it's about getting younger people out to vote.
Oh, yes.
I have some extreme worries that the new generations are not believing in electoralism. I'm just seeing increasing pessimism about not even thinking democracy is worth participating in. I say it really genuinely. And this is the problem I think I can use my efforts best to solve. And that's what progressive victory is all about. We actually sometimes work with people on the right that we think are reasonable. It's just about empowering them. And we think that will naturally lead to better policies in the country.
I like it. Well, thank all of you for being here. Our final story is coming up in just a bit, but first a word from Palo Alto Networks, one of our newer sponsors. We love Palo Alto Networks. They now offer Zero T for OT. David, what's that mean? Zero Trust for operations?
Operational technology, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. ZT for OT. Without the trauma.
Alto is a sponsor with us as well.
Yeah, they're great company.
We like
Keeping operational technology secure and running is as smooth as a tall order. It's enough to make even the coolest operations director wake up with night sweats. Well, now you got peace of mind with Zero Trust for operational technology. Zero Trust OT Security. Zero Trust OT Security delivers comprehensive visibility and security for all OT assets, networks, and remote operations. Palo Alto Networks solution provides exceptional OT protection, more than 1,100 app IDs for OT protocols, 500 plus profiles for critical OT assets, and more than 650 OT-specific threat signatures supported. It provides the best-in-class security while simplifying OT security management. It sees and protects everything in the network. It automates threat detection and implements Zero Trust across all operations. You know you want this. Sleep better with the most comprehensive platform to detect, manage, and secure OT assets. Learn how the Palo Alto Network Zero Trust for OT security solution can achieve 351% ROI over 5 years. To learn more, find the link in the show description or visit paloaltonetworks.com. paloaltonetworks.com. Thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. Had a fun week this week, and we have a little mini movie to celebrate. Watch. You know, I got a mystery gift yesterday.
A bunch of whiskey arrives. Why is that a mystery?
Yeah, I should have known. It's a whiskey advent calendar.
Let's just see how many of these you can get through before the end of the show.
Every time you say insider, I shall take one of these.
Oh, I got bad news for you. I got 5 bills to talk about today.
Previously on TWiT. This Week in Google.
Got a special guest, Stephen B. Johnson. You may know him from his PBS television show, his books and podcasts, but he's also the guy who helped Google design a new tool for writers called Notebook LM.
The number one skill in eliciting the behavior you want from a language model is, a clear command and a persuasive command of the English language.
MacBreak Weekly.
I've got a wacky theory about the iPad Pro I want to throw out there. What if the M3 iPad Pro with that fancy MacBook-like keyboard ran macOS in a virtual machine?
Whoa, dude. It's never going to happen. You're nuts. You're
never going to happen.
You're crazy.
Security Now.
Quantum computing research conducted at Harvard made headlines last Thursday with what those in the know are pretty certain represents a significant step forward in the quest for a practical quantum computer. Asymmetric crypto, such as RSA and elliptic curve crypto, are both on the chopping block. So it was prescient that the academic crypto community began worrying about this years ago and has now generated a series of quantum-safe replacement algorithms that are rapidly being moved toward adoption.
TWiT. Thousands of hours of high-quality dribble.
Using three-dimensional, that's 8 by 3 by 2 code blocks, we realize computationally complex sampling circuits with up to 48 logical qubits entangled with hypercube connectivity with 228 logical 2-qubit gates and 48 logical CZZ gates. These results herald the advent of early error-corrected quantum computation and chart a path toward large-scale logical processors.
Well, of course. It's obvious. Any fool knows that. Actually, when you get Steve Gibson saying quantum computing made a major breakthrough, and you combine that with the stuff we've been talking about with AI, I think we are going to live in interesting times. I think that's the best way we could put it. And Nate, good news for anybody covering technology. We're going to have a job in the next few years, a big one, I think. Personally, I think it's exciting.
I love having a job.
Yes. You said it, my friend. All right, before we wrap up some quickies, there was a lot of news this week. Tesla, 2 million cars are recalled thanks to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, which says Tesla's autopilot doesn't do enough to prevent misuse. The Tesla autopilot will have to be updated, and they will be monitoring. The spokesperson for the NHTSA said Tesla's mean for keeping drivers engaged was inadequate. Many other cars, my Ford Blue Cruise, GM's, whatever they call it, have cameras that watch your eyes and know if you're sleeping or looking away from the road, reading a book, watching a movie. The Tesla does not. It's using a torque sensor in the steering wheel, and people have actually tied ropes to it and various mechanisms so they can get in the back seat and take a nap. Do not, okay? Don't. And I'm not sure what the recall will do. It's an over-the-air software update that started this week. It hit Tesla's shares quite hard. Also, some other bad news for Elon. The FCC, which had originally said we're going to give you almost $1 billion subsidy for Starlink to provide communications infrastructure for rural America, has said, the FCC has said they failed to demonstrate they could do it. We're going to withhold the money. $85 million set aside for Starlink is not part of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, is not going to Starlink. And Elon apparently was hopping mad. I think anybody who understands how Starlink works, that it costs $600 for the hardware and more than $100 a month, realize this is not rural digital opportunity by any means. Any comments, thoughts? We can move on. If not, don't worry. You don't have to say anything.
I feel very strongly that outsourcing communications in the theater of war to a company like Starlink is a threat to national security. And I don't care if it costs more. I think that if we're serious about national security, I think we need control over our own information space. And I think we need to end this contract immediately.
Yeah, I agree. Netflix has done something they said they would never do. They've released viewing numbers for their titles. They didn't want to do it. I think a couple of things pushed them into it. One was, of course, the writers' strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike, because they weren't getting paid because Netflix wasn't saying how many people were watching the shows.
Well, they did. Understand, Netflix didn't need to. They didn't have advertisers.
Right.
They had no need to.
And the contracts with actors and writers that specified residuals were all for network television, not for streaming. There are no residuals for streaming. I think that contract has been updated. Good news in both cases. But now we know that the biggest title in the first half of the year for Netflix was The Night Agent. Now, Netflix doesn't put out numbers like normal television stations. They said 812 million hours of viewing. Is that a billion people watched for half an hour? Is that, I don't know. I don't know what it means either.
I love that show.
The Night Agent was good. That was the one where the poor guy, was stuck in the basement to monitor a phone that never rang, and then it rings.
Yeah.
And that
I'd heard of like 2 of the top 10.
I've never heard of Ginny in Georgia. I don't know that. That was number 2, 665 million. I've never heard of that. Nope. The Glory, a Korean drama, number 3. Never heard of that. Now, this is worldwide, remember?
Yeah. Tom Merritt, ex of your parish, said some good things about that particular one, I think.
Ginny in Georgia or The Glory?
The Glory.
The Glory. Okay, I'll watch it. We started watching a Korean dating show. We stopped watching immediately. But I'll watch The Glory. And number 4, Wednesday, which was a good show. The Wednesday Addams story. That was quite good. One would have thought Suits, given the fact that everybody was watching Suits earlier this year. Suits, it definitely dominated in the U.S. with almost 600 million hours of viewing across all 9 seasons. So there you go. We never had these numbers. Now we have them. Who cares? E3 is gone. They, haven't they canceled it now like 2 years in a row?
Yeah, they're trying to bring it back, but it's like it just doesn't work anymore.
It's dead. So the ESA.
It's just something I think about how huge that show was, how huge Comdex was. I mean, it's amazing. I'm just shocked how the mighty shows fall.
And yet CES persists.
You can touch stuff.
Well, RSA and the security space and Black Hat, those shows are
huge.
Massive, especially RSA. Those are off the charts huge.
E3 was the gaming show, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. And, the writing was on the wall when Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, all 3 said, we're not going. We're just going to have our own events. I mean, I think without those 3, you really don't have much of a show.
It is beta. But the weird thing is that, they still did that on E3 weekend. They still did their shows on E3 weekend. So
I know.
It's they were still at E3.
It was at that time. They were even around the corner, right? They were in town. I think, what, Paul Benito, by the way, our wonderful producer, he is now officially full-time producer of this show, as well as our TD and editor. So you do it all. Thank you, Benito. We appreciate it. Benito Gonzalez is great. Windows Weekly, we were talking about this, and I think Paul, or maybe it was Rich, but one of them said, what you're really seeing is the fact that there aren't a million different game companies now. So in a day and age when there were many independent game companies, lots of different game companies, you could have a show because everybody had something to show, and they needed the mass bulk of E3 to do it. But when you're dominated by a handful of companies, all of which, Steam can have their own event, they all can have their own event.
And they all do.
You don't really need it. It's like,
But correct me if I'm wrong here, because I don't report on the game community, but wasn't the point of E3 for the platforms to fight against each other to see which platform would succeed?
Yeah, there was certainly part of that. It was just from an era before Nintendo Direct, and it costs so much money to go to E3 and produce those kinds of shows. Like, you're exactly right on that. And like, eventually it's just like, why should I spend this much money when I could produce something in-house and get the information directly to people? I think the biggest loss here is it's just like it's not that E3 was important, but it's more like this is just another thing of like institutions in the gaming press like being taken down, and there not being a financial model for it. Gaming press has had brutal layoffs this year, like all media companies. It's moved largely to personalities on YouTube. And like, they're the ethical questions of who is reviewing games and what their motivations are. It's never been more extreme than it is right now. So, I just think it's sad for yet another thing in the game industry to like not be able to find a financial way forward.
That's absolutely true. Like E3, when I used to work for the Games Press, E3 made up like I think 75% of our revenue for the year.
Wow.
It paid my whole salary basically whenever we covered E3. So like, that was.
Yeah, I mean, the heyday of the big conferences though is long gone. I mean, Tech TV covered Comdex and CES for, it was $1 million each time we went down there. We'd build big stages. We even did it. TWiT did it for a few years. We went down to CES and we'd have our own booth and stuff, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing in the security industry, specifically calling out RSA, is the gravity these events introduce. And it's not just the event itself, but everything that goes around in the city around that event becomes enormous and becomes critical.
Well, look what happened
to the marketplace
at Salesforce convention in San Francisco. It was the only thing that get the homeless off the streets. They cleaned up the whole city for the Salesforce event. And then, of course, it went right back to the way it was before. I think that a lot of why people who attend these like them is that they're social events. Right, Benito? It's a chance to see those people once a year. You get to all get together.
Yeah, I mean, CES was like that too. CES is like that too.
Yeah. Tech journalists love it. I mean, we go to parties together, we dance, we sing. The New York Times.
I used to.
Yeah, not anymore.
When I liked parties and seeing other people.
Maybe that's it.
When I was less grumpy.
We've all gotten grumpy. That's what it is. New York Times has analyzed a year's worth of Wordles and has published an article, The 7 Things We Learned Analyzing 515 Million Wordles. That's how many Wordles were done. Do any of you do Wordle? I do Wordle. Do you like Wordle?
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while, but yes.
What are your opening words, Leo? Come on.
Okay, so that's an interesting question, isn't it?
That was one of the ones answered in this article.
That's one of the ones they answered. I did not know, but apparently there is a Wordle analyzing program that you can use.
From the New York Times.
From the New York. So for people who don't know, this was started, a guy named Wordle, was it Patrick Wordle, created this word puzzle where you would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word. And it was kind of like, you remember, was it called Mind? Mastermind. So my first word is not TT. You never repeat that. You may get a repeat, but don't do that with your guess. TEARS. I always like to do that, right? And now Wordle's telling me that there's no T, there's no E, there's no R, there's no S. There is an A, but it's not in that position. So that was a terrible first word. The New York Times says what do you think the most popular first word is? Adieu.
Yeah, that's super possible.
Is it because it's all vowels?
Yeah, it has a lot of vowels.
That is exactly
A, E, I, and U. But anybody who knows English knows that the most common letters in English are E, T, A, I, O, N, S, H, R, D, L, U in that order.
The ones they give you for free on Wheel of Fortune.
The ones they give you for free. Thank you. The vowels.
Which they didn't always do that on Wheel of Fortune. They wised up eventually.
Anyway, adieu, in fact, does not help you. New York Times says, our analysis shows that starting with adieu or audio puts you at a disadvantage. On average, players who started with adieu needed about a third of a turn more to solve their Wordles compared with players who started with slate. They use slate as the baseline. Is that your first word?
I'm a Saleh crony kind of gal. Those are my two go-to.
Reason I use tears, which is the same letters, by the way, almost the same letters. I have an R instead of an L, but both of those are good. Is I like to end with an S just in case. Just in case. You never know. But don't use it. You're going to be guessing on average 103.
Don't they never have plural words?
Well, somebody told me don't bother with the plurals, but I like to start with that. Maybe I shouldn't.
I don't think they have plurals.
I get E, T, and A in, which are the most common letters in the English language.
I have failed consistently by starting with 8-letter words. That's a mistake. I don't
do
recommend
not.
it.
There's no. Are you crazy? You're nuts. Don't do that. Don't. Anyway, New York Times knows apparently exactly what's going on with the Wordle. And that's our stories for the week. Unless you guys have anything you want to bring up. No, I
have something I wanted to close on today.
Oh, good.
So Leo, when I first started coming on this show, some of the best people I've hired have come from TWiT in your audience, like a fantastic data analyst I worked with a while back. We are hiring at Progressive Victory, and I really want to urge anyone out there, if you work with TypeScript, Node, Next.js, React especially, Mongo, anything like that, please consider coming and working for me. We're scaling up a really big software dev team for a big project I can't talk about, fully funded. And if you want to go look at those jobs, go to workwithpv.com. Workwithpv.com. I would love to work with you. What I really want to find is someone who is skilled in the software industry, that has leadership experience and can carry a project across the finish line. The thing that we're building, I think, is going to be really important for democracy.
Miss Wu.
Yes.
I am a Republican. Can I go to work for you?
I will work with reasonable Republicans, but you should probably.
Can I wear my MAGA hat?
We may have to have a meeting about that.
Okay, just checking.
One of the people on my team is actually a person that totally reasonable Republican. He's actually a former Marine that I work with quite a bit.
That's very common, right?
Yeah.
My wife was a Republican for many years.
There we go.
I was a Republican at one time as well.
Sure. Nothing wrong with Republicans. And you could even be working for Progressive Victories if you wanted, if you were crazy enough to go to workwithpv.com. Thank you, Brianna. That's wonderful. Brianna Wu. Always a pleasure. We got Brianna to do this at midnight last night. So thank you.
I needed to hire some people. That's why I came on.
Good, it works.
To get some great candidates.
You got your plug-in.
We got my video editor. I'm going to get my React developer. It's going to be great.
It was hard to find people for the show because a lot of people are already on vacation. You lucky dogs.
Oh, vacation.
Vacation. What's that? Nate Lanxon. I cannot wait to see the robotics episode. When does that come out of AI IRL?
That airs on Wednesday evening. I think it's like 7 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg TV, but it's on the web and YouTube and things. It's the season finale. It's about robots. We have a woman on who wrote a book that went into quite a lot of detail about human intimacy with machines, which does form part of the topic, but it's Bloomberg TV, so it's very much safe for work. And we do interview a robotic woman who I didn't want to interview initially, but then she helped prove my point. So it ended up being probably my favorite episode of the entire run.
Was she a human being who acted robotic or an actual robotic woman?
No, an actual robotic woman.
And was it?
Yeah.
Was she realistic?
I will let you be the judge of that.
Good.
But it helps prove my point that there is a void between amazing robotics and amazing AI, and they do overlap, but not as much as we're maybe led to believe.
Yeah. The real world's
it's a fun episode.
It's hard to navigate. I mean, look at self-driving cars. They have not lived up to their promise by any means.
Yeah, absolutely.
AI IRL on Bloomberg TV. And of course,
it'd be a good one to check out.
Catch Nate's work as tech editor for Bloomberg Europe and drummer extraordinaire. Thank you, Nate.
Yes.
We don't know. They've just been there. We've never heard him play them.
Never. In all the times Nate has appeared on the show, he's never even tapped one of them.
It's true. I always promise to do a heavy metal, like a death metal drum cover of the TWiT theme.
Oh,
I will do that this
Could
year.
you?
Not now,
Please.
because it's 1 a.m. here and my wife's in bed.
Yeah.
But I will do it.
all
when it's not
drum
1 a.m.
solo all
great
the
time.
time. That sounds fantastic.
I will do you a death metal cover.
This week in death metal. Now you're talking. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Nate. I really appreciate it. You're staying up late with us. Give your
My pleasure.
your wife
Thanks for
back her
having me.
microphone, but not right away.
Yeah, I will do. I will. Yeah.
And David Spark, my old friend from Tech TV, he's the blue bubble in the bunch, host and producer of CISO Series at CISOseries.com. Always a pleasure.
And it's a pleasure. And I would also like to make a mention, if there's anybody in the San Diego area that is interested in cybersecurity, completely divorced from my organization, we have a meetup in the San Diego area. It's called the San Diego Cyber Group. It's on meetup.com. We're having one this Wednesday, the 20th of December. Please join us.
It's like a user group. I remember those.
Yes, a good old-fashioned user group, cybersecurity. And we have fun. We do salon-style discussions that play fun games with everybody. There it is.
How many people typically will show up for that?
Well, we literally just started it a few months ago, and we have like 25 to 40 people show up so far.
Fun.
So we just started it, and it's working on it. It's been fun.
And you do it at the Carl Strauss Brewing Company.
Carl Strauss in Sorrento Valley in San Diego.
Sounds nice. Can I have a beer during the event?
Yes, there's beer and food and all that good stuff.
I'm going, man. You got 49 people saying they're going Wednesday, December 20th. Thank you, David Spark. Thank you, Nate Lanxon. Thank you, Brianna Wu. And thanks to you, all of you, for watching the show. We do TWiT. Well, I should say next week, the Christmas Eve, we're not going to be here, but we have a great show we recorded earlier for you. The Old Farts Christmas Special. Doc Searles, Jeff Jarvis, Steve Gibson, Rod Pyle, and me. You have to be over 60
you really got
to go.
them together.
You have to be over 60 to do it, but if you are, you don't have to be over 60 to listen. But you know what? Sometimes the gray hairs have some historic understanding of what's going on in technology. The conversation was fantastic. I highly recommend that episode. Best episode of the year, or one of them anyway, along with this one. And then on New Year's Eve, it's, of course, the best of, where we do pick segments from all year long. And we will be back January 7th with a brand new, all-new episode of This Week in Tech. We do the show 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 5 to 8 Eastern time. Middle of the night in the UK. It's actually 2200 UTC when we start, and it only gets later. You can watch us do it live. We are streaming all our shows live on YouTube at no cost to you. That's youtube.com/twit. And you know, if you ring the bell, it'll notify you when a live stream begins. We only do it during the show's production. If you are a member of Club TWiT, you can watch in the Discord as well, and that stream continues for the entire broadcast day. We will be back in January. Have a wonderful holiday. I hope you had a good Hanukkah. May your Festivus be full of grievances. May your Christmas be full of joy. And here's to what we all need more than anything, a peaceful, joyous, and successful 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.